If he had given me 200k that day, I would have found a way to spend 200k in 6 months. But he gave me 10k. So now every single penny has to be accounted for. I'm scrapping, I'm pushing back on supplies, all of this stuff. Penny pinching, literally, this is what you're working towards, this is what you're optimizing for. And that's always the question you should start with, is what are you optimizing for? Tell everyone about it, validate it. If they come, then build it. You don't want to look for the confirmation bias, you want the opposite. Get out there and get real world, attributable value from real people who have the potential to be your customers, but you want them to object. Once you have the objections, that is the data set that you need to then either overcome or pivot and get around.
Before we start this podcast, I have one little favor to ask you. Can you please hit the subscribe button down below so we can help more people every single week? Thank you. Bro, I appreciate this. Where I want to start is a quote that I see repeatedly on your stuff, which is, the skill set without the mindset will leave you upset. Where'd you get that from?
I got it from a mentor of mine in the UK called Rob Moore. He's a...
No way.
Yeah, you know
Rob
Rob?
Moore was on the podcast.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
For
bro.
real? No way.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, man. He's a fucking... The property guy.
Yeah.
The podcaster.
Yeah, Peterborough dude.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah, man. He's dialed in, bro.
Yeah, for real. He's legit as well. Like that.
Yeah. He's legit, bro. He's doing like 20 million a year cash.
Yeah, and it's on property trading and investment portfolio as well.
His theory is like, if you can do it, you can teach it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I know he also gets a lot of pushback. He's like one of those ranty guys, if you follow him on social media. Like, particularly with the British politics and all the tax system, I find it fascinating. He has a business partner called, what's he called? Mind blank. No idea. Mark Homer. And they like have a complementary skill set. One's more analytical, in the shadows. Rob's like literally loudmouth dude. But he was one of the first guys I kind of got, I call it like shadow mentor from. I could never afford it in the early days of like getting one-to-one. But I remember reading his book. It was a mentor of mine who gave me his book called Life Leverage. And it was like the English version of the 4-Hour Work Week. And the 4-Hour Work Week was the book that literally like changed my life. Because I was like deep in corporate. Like my story was mad. I remember going away, giving that. And the 4-Hour Work Week was like the first ever book I've read, other than like the Bible or something like that. That was it. That was the first book I read. I had to force myself to sit and read it. But it's like Naval says, read what you love until you love to read. And that literally just sent me on this whole journey of self-development to the point now it's like almost an obsession. But the whole skill set without the mindset quote is the reason I reiterate it is because I think success in business is 90% mindset, 10% execution. Like normally it's like an 80-20 thing, right? I think it's a 90%. Like, why? Because business is hard. Like, it's one of the most difficult things you'll ever have to do. And if you don't have a very strong why, if you don't have that, what Sam Evans calls a Polaris star, or your North Star goal, everything around you, like you're literally going to war. Not like physical war, but it's mostly like a mental war. Like your reward in business for overcoming a problem is a bigger problem. That's it. New level, new devil. I think that's also a Rob Moore thing as well, right? That's it. So if you don't like cultivate a strong mindset, you're just going to quit. Because every cell in your body, and most of the times if you don't have a good network, everyone around you, friends and family, they think they're looking out for you. But actually all they're doing, or probably thinking, is just to encourage you to stay small, follow the script, take the easy route. And that is always an option for you, but you know how that ends. Yeah. So if you don't build that mindset, it's almost impossible for you to do well in business.
This episode of Kickoff Sessions is sponsored by Tenplus. I've been using Tenplus in a hot tropical climate for electrolytes, for also hydration, keep up with training, and also my performance in my podcast and in my business. Tenplus is actually designed to enhance performance specifically in tropical climates. The result is a potent blend of Indonesian ingredients that enhance peak performance and also taste awesome as well. I'm using Tenplus every single day right now across their mango, citrus, orange, and pineapple flavor. You can order it directly in Indonesia by checking out the link right down below here. So check out Tenplus and you'll be able to get access to a wide range of their products to enhance your performance, improve your hydration, and also be able to perform at a better level. I think it's interesting to observe and look back. You connect the dots backwards, right? And then looking at that now to someone like where you're at, and even where I'm at, is like that's like something that's nearly obvious. But in the beginning, especially when you're like in Southampton and you're trying to build this out and you're working in Tesco and you're trying to like do all this shit, that seems so hard to picture. Do you get me?
Yeah.
To put that together and be like, okay, this is actually the importance of it. But I completely agree, man, because like even the way you perceive like where you're currently at, like to someone 5K a month could be amazing, and that could be like everything. To other people, 500K a month could be nothing, right? It depends on where you're coming into the spectrum from. And there's a really good Hormozy quote on this, where it wasn't a quote, it was like a clip on it, where he was with like a billionaire, like a genuine billionaire, and the man goes, Alex, if I just had more money, I'd be happy. And the whole reason was because the guy was like super wealthy, all his friends were like decking billionaires. So to him, being just a billionaire was nothing. So there's also that perspective shift too, because like one, it's going to be fucking extremely excruciatingly difficult, but then there's also the perspective shift then being like, we need to actually be able to realize good or bad.
Yeah, it's relative. It really is relative. As you said before, like $5,000 a month could be life-changing money for someone.
Yeah.
Whereas probably for us, it's like, I'm broke.
Yeah, 100%.
I'm in panic mode.
Yeah, 100%. Or it's like, it's only one client and then you need to go again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And I think that's where like the difficulty comes in, because it's a goalpost that's always moving intentionally and then unconsciously at the same time. It's a good thing that it's moving, but it's not, that feeds into our personality, but there's also a second side of it.
Yeah, but money's a funny one. Like, I spend like the whole 2 hours just talking about money because by nature it's quite nebulous. If you're like setting a number, it's arbitrary, okay? And then you get there and I say, okay, now that's my new minimum. I can't go below that. Like, what's next? You're constantly on that hamster wheel, if you like. So that's why I bring it back to that North Star, Polaris Star of this is what you're working towards, this is what you're optimizing for. And that's always the question you should start with, is what are you optimizing for?
How did you decide that for you?
For me, I was brought up like literally, I suppose, not like poverty, but like the Western world version of that, like council estate, which is government funding, northeast of England. I brought up in a cult as well. So like,
is it okay to call that a cult?
pretty much a cult, bro. Like if you look at it, as a definition of a cult. The religious sect, Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, so why is it a cult? And what have you learned about cult building from being in a cult?
Bro, it's like one of the most intelligent things to do and set up. Like the level of intricacy that they're able to like manufacture, it is literal brainwashing. But I have so much respect for it because it works. I think that they need to get people when they're low, and they basically give them hope, irrespective of that. But you can never take that away from someone.
Explain.
So, say someone has just lost a family member. It's a missionary religion, so you're going out. They're all known for like knocking on doors and preaching. That's what they do. Or they'll stand in town centres and reach out to people. You tell someone that there's a version of this world, if you convert, that you're going to see that person again. This person's going to be resurrected and they're going to be a perfect human being, and you're going to live eternally on an earth that's a paradise. Right? It's a hard sales pitch, right? So imagine like me, whatever, up until I was probably 16, 17, I might even been 18, I was in this religion, and you're taught to be no part of the world. The world is their proxy for anyone who isn't in their religion, so they cut you off completely. But deliberately so, because you're not going to get exposed to any ulterior beliefs. You're not going to get sucked into like anything that isn't within the bounds of what they give you. So they're essentially, they've switched to digital now. It was a printing press. So they print their own books, they print their own media, and this is the only thing that you're allowed to consume.
What happens if you go outside the path that Jehovah's Witnesses put you on? Like, so let's say you don't read the book, you go out and you hang out with other people. What happens to you?
So they call it like living a double life. And for them, there's no sitting on the fence. You're either in or you're out. And they make you make a commitment to staying in by getting baptized. And that means that's it. All of your past sins are washed clear.
Because I looked it up as Christian-based, right?
Christian-based, it's a Christian sect, yeah. So it's almost like fundamentalist Christians. And to be fair, when you look into it, a lot of the values that they have are true to source from the Bible. Like, it's very black and white. There's no, because like, look at, again, we don't have to go down too much of a rabbit hole with religion and Christianity, but you find a lot of religion, just say Christianity for now, the way that it's structured, it evolves over time. So say like contentious issues like having a woman as a priest, sex before marriage, allowing gay priests, that according to the Bible is shunned, it's bad, it's wrong. okay? So you come to like a moral dilemma of, do you move with the times to stay relevant, to keep people coming into the church and believing, or do you stick by exactly what the Bible says? And then if you stick by the Bible says, whose word is that? Is that God's word? Is that a man's word? Is that just the way we interpret it? So it's a proper minefield. But Jehovah's Witnesses are strict by the book. If it doesn't say it in here, then you don't do it. If it does say it in here, then you can't do it. The problem is you're interpreting values from 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 years ago, and it's very hard to make them applicable to modern day scenarios and situations. So they have a group of guys called elders, and then they have a group of guys above those who are the anointed class. So these guys don't have a earthly calling; they have a heavenly calling. Okay, I'm trying to.
This is fucking wild,
so these
man.
guys have direct communication with God. Okay, Jehovah is God. God's name is Jehovah. Okay. Again, if you look back in the Bible, that's actually true.
And you can make this as elementary as possible, because me and everyone listening
Yeah.
has no fucking clue about Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah. So anointed class have direct communication with God. So if there's any grey areas, if they're able to commune and then give objective opinions on whether this should be done or shouldn't be done. Like, use the example of smoking. They used to encourage it, and then apparently there was a transmission. Now you're not allowed to smoke. Like, there was a recent one where women can now wear trousers and instead of just skirts. Just stuff like that, okay? Because you can't legislate for that in the Bible, because it's like, again, it's too specific to modern era. So that anointing class passed down to elders. Elders are distributed locally or nationally, and these are the guys who kind of police what they call smaller congregations, and that's how they build that community. And I think the community element is the most important thing of anything, because it brings people together, okay, and indoctrinates them, but to a common purpose and a common goal. So this is why I remember I was at a mastermind a couple of weeks ago with a guy called Dan Bolton, so where I met Hamza, etc. Okay, it was Tom's recommendation that I went, which was amazing. And they went around the room at the start just to introduce everyone, and they're like, "Who are you? What do you do? And what's your superpower?" So when I stood up, I'm like, "Yeah, whatever, Luke, done X, Y, and Z. My superpower is I can sell anything to anyone online." Okay, and the reason why I can do that is because I've essentially been in sales since I was a child. Okay, but the sales pitch I was given to knock on a door and tell someone that if they don't convert, they're going to die. And if they do convert, they're going to survive Armageddon, which is the cleansing. They're going to have 1,000 years to turn the earth into a paradise. Okay, at which point everyone who's ever died will be resurrected if they didn't get a chance to be witnessed to, they didn't get a chance to be preached to. They would then have a certain period of time to convert, at which point Satan would come back out and you'd have one more chance to convert, and if they didn't, they'd be destroyed forever. And then whoever's left will live in this paradise earth as eternal human beings, perfect human beings, and you can talk to animals.
Jesus Christ.
So if I can like knock and like be confident knocking on someone's door, telling them this, and this is what they call the good news, that you can't be saved, you can't see your loved ones again. Like,
it's a sales process.
Yeah, but there is no harder sales pitch than that, bro.
What was your conversion
Give me
rate?
energy sales. I'll do anything, right? Okay.
What was the conversion rate on it?
I never converted anyone, but it was more so the fact that like 6, 7, 8, walking past the guys from school playing football on a summer's afternoon, and like, why you got a suit on? What are you doing? I'm like, I'm just going to a funeral. Like, it's the worst thing. It's like, it's so embarrassing.
But this is what's interesting is that, okay, so when you're in this cult, this is very interesting, because there's so much similarities between the community building of this and indoctrination with social media and people thinking a certain way, and should you run ads, should you do organic, like it's all indoctrination. But the question is, did you believe it when you were in it? Did you truly believe it? Or were you just following a plan that you were given? And then when you had left, did you look into it and think, I never believed it?
Good question. When I was young, you're easily molded, right? And my mum and dad split up when I was really young. I think that's when she converted, actually. They did end up getting back together, like, 4 or 5 years later. But my mum was the one who was in the religion. She's the one who converted. My dad is Italian, Catholic, non-practicing Catholic, but that's the reason they split up, I think, is because she converted. Okay, so I kind of just went along because my mum. It was my way of getting my mum's approval, basically. Like, her whole thing was, if you're doing well in the religion, you're preaching, you're turning up, you're going to all of the meetings, they call them, then that was how I kind of got my approval. Make sense? So Did I believe it? Yes, for a short time, but also I was clever enough to sit on the fence, and it was like an invisible fence where I was still able to integrate with everyone at school and be like whatever the cool kid, or just like I could literally blend into anyone. Ended up being like another kind of superpower, but I was never like fully in, and thankfully I didn't get baptized. If I was baptized, when I left, I would have been completely cut off from my family and all of my friends, because they call it shunning. So and this is the only way they can do it, if you're actually in. So when I say in, you're actually baptized, so you've made that commitment to commit the rest of your life to this religion. If you go out of that, if you break the rules in any way, sort of form, you can be cast out. And that's when it gets difficult, and that's the psychological kind of moral issue that they have if ever you look into it, because they literally cut you off from this is this small, tiny community, okay? All you've known, all of your friends, like in your family, they can't even look at you, you're out. And that is a way to get you to then come back, because it's a core human necessity. Like, go back to primal times of being cast out of the tribe, you're dead.
Dude, this is so interesting, because like that's a big thing with like these communities and coaching programs and so on. It's like you pay to get access, you get access to whoever, and then when you don't pay and you don't renew, you lose access immediately, you know? And where everyone is pal, best mates, but the second you don't pay or the second you don't do what's being asked of you, you get pushed out. That was one of the biggest problems I had with a lot of the bigger like men's groups, or put it that way, whatever way to describe it, boys groups, right? Was the fact that you had to. So I liked a lot of them in theory, and everyone knows like the big ones, whatever. I liked a lot, and I spoke to Tom about this a lot in detail too. I liked them in theory, and I liked the idea of like being around like a brotherhood and having good guys and having other entrepreneurs and so on and so forth. But sometimes I didn't like the messaging of what they were going after, you know, and some of it was around women specifically. And I remember hearing that they used to basically cut people out just randomly. So if you weren't like performing or you weren't engaging, you would just be cut. And when I heard that, even though you had paid, it was a huge red flag for me. And I still think they're net positive, but I think that that's such a fucking dangerous line, because you were not Jehovah's Witness, you were not in cult A, community B, you're just Lou. Yeah. And the fact that people put you in those boxes, I think it's such a hard, it's case by case, but I think sometimes that can limit someone. It can also propel someone forward. Like say if they're starting out and they're just paid to get in there and a lot of people help them and so on. That's really good. So I think it's case by case.
It can be quite polarizing. But as you said, it makes...
Sorry, just before you said that, it goes back to what you mentioned about picking the vulnerable. You know, you mentioned about someone dying. That's a net positive. You lift them up. They may have alcoholism or they may be an addict or whatever. You lift them up. But then there's someone who actually is doing really well with a nice functioning family, and you tear them from the family, and that would drag them down. So it's so case by case.
It is, yeah. It either makes you or breaks you, though, right? And the way they castigate you or push you out is designed to break you, because you're cut off from everything. And think, if you're brought up in this, all of your friends, everything that's kind of tied in is in that community, and that's the magnetic pull that will get you to come back. So this is why I'm saying it's very cleverly put together. Yeah. And the way the material is presented, down to the music, they all sing songs, the words in it, the melodies, the frequency of everything, it is like meticulous. I have so much respect for it. But I don't like bad mouthing them. Again, they're all very nice people, but whatever, like, I also wouldn't want to take anyone out of it, because it's their calling, they're passionate about it, they love it. It gives them meaning. You can never strip that away from someone. But is that the way I want to live my life, and basically take a gamble on this one shot you've got on this earth as a human being, the one in how many hundreds of trillion% chance of being here, even at this point in time? Do I want to risk that on other people's opinion, or some unknown guy who's interpreted this way, that this is what you need to do, otherwise you're going to die? Probably not. Like, I'm going to like be in that scientist mentality, and I'm going to find out for myself. And I answer this with Tom as well, because I try and like still blend the spiritual element into business, and that gives you like a whole different dimension.
So would you still say you're spiritual and religious now, but in a different manner?
My one-liner, I think I took it from Jordan Peterson, is I don't believe in God, but I act as if he exists. Interesting. So from a moral perspective, the way that your business is run, everything is all in alignment, okay? And they always say you don't have business problems, you have personal problems that reflect as business problems, okay? And I think, again, it gives you a different dimension, yeah, because you're allowed to think second, third, fourth, fifth order consequences as opposed to just solely for founder benefit. Like, everything is ideally mission orientated as opposed to just there for profit, okay? It's that value proposition, give before you get. But again, this is like super nuanced, and we can stay on the religion or we can duck and dive around, but it's a core part of the story. And the reason that I left the religion is because I wanted to go to university, and this is actually an interesting story. Tie it back to what they're preaching is that we're going to be perfect human beings if we survive Judgment Day. All I wanted to do is play football, okay? That's it, I don't play football. So the closest thing I could do to get into that was to study sports science. Now, no one in my family, even my extended family, has ever gone to university. As I said, I grew up in literal poverty, like government funding, okay? So I don't know how much they give, but there's no month at the end of the money. I remember like my mum having to, with the milk, she would use half of it and then fill it back up with water again, okay? Like that level, okay? So I'm like, if there's a way for me to make a difference in the world and be self-sufficient, but then do something that I actually enjoy doing and get into professional football, then why would I not do that? So the conversation I had with one of the elders, they called someone you would study with in the religion, is, I'm going to go to university. It wasn't, can I go to university? He said, what are you going to study? I'm going to do sports science or life sciences. To which he said, we're not going to lead life sciences, we're not going to need life scientists in the new system. We're going to need plumbers, we're going to be builders, construction people, because we're going to be turning the earth into a paradise, okay? We're not going to need lawyers, doctors, anything, okay? We're just going to need construction people or window cleaners or just basic trade stuff, okay? So I'm like, yeah, exactly. So that was like game over for me. I'm glazed over. I'm not interested at all. Like, it should make no difference. But the actual real reason they don't want you to go, because is the one thing that university taught me, which is critical thought. When you're in that closed off, boxed off space, you are not exposed to any other ways of thinking. At university, though, you're going to be taught a scientific method, scientific approach. You're going to be taught to look for root cause or first principles. If you're presented something in a scientific article, is it peer review? And then even if it is, you're looking at the abstract, the conclusion, what are the limitations of the study, because that's not objective truth. The whole point of science is to get as close to objective truth, but when you find objective truth, that then starts more questions, or it's based on certain assumptions or base assumptions, and it just goes on and on and on and on in the pursuit of truth, objective truth. When you're taught and prescribed what to think, you're not asking any questions. It's one-way traffic, and you can't resist it either because you don't have the mental capacity, you don't have the bandwidth to be able to push back and ask why. You literally just take it and it's, okay, these guys have direct communion with God, therefore they're right. I'm not going to ask any questions.
That's unique, man, to have that perspective, because a lot of people would say university doesn't do that. I'd say it would say that it tries to condition you more. Exactly, right? So it's like someone like yourself who's been forced to think a specific way is now looking at even this alternative way of thinking, which is what's interesting, right? Because that flows really well into business, which is like, we believed it was like this, we tried it didn't work, and now this is a new opportunity like here. And that's kind of why I wanted to start on like mainly the kind of mindset side and even looking at the psychology side, because it looks like to me that you've observed the psychology side of just humans first, right? Which goes back to the sales side. So like, my question for you of that is like, from university, breaking away from that approach, like what did you observe from like human psychology, even when you went into building your business, everything, right? Because like the triggers that you're looking at now are basically the repeatable triggers that are always happening in society.
Yeah. The one line was, just to touch on the religion and close that box off, it was, I think, therefore I'm dangerous. Make sense? Yeah. You're not taught to think, you're not taught to push back. You're just taught to take and absorb and apply. Whereas university, probably because it's life science, is you're in the pursuit of like objective knowledge, and you just come up with a hypothesis. And this bleeds perfectly into business because this is the only way that you make progress. I took it from Tom Bilyeu, where he calls it the physics of progress. And it is just a continuous cycle of hypothesis. Take it to market, test it. Did it work? Yes. Do more. Did it not work? Go again.
And everyone's not doing that. You know what I mean?
That's skill acquisition across any medium, whether it's walking, riding a bike, building a business. You're always in that you have to be in that scientific frame of mind. Yeah, unless you're able to skip the queue or get some sort of shortcut, and I believe there are no shortcuts. If there is one, it's buying the knowledge from those who are 1 or 2 steps ahead of you, and that's it, and applying it. That's the only way you can leverage.
So a lot of the offers that we're building on the back of podcasts now, a lot of guys will come in and they'll look for an offer. They'll be like, oh, I have this idea, da, da, da. And then like anyone can build an offer in 30 minutes, right? It's like, okay, we're doing this, we're doing that. But then what most people are trying to do is they go build it, right? Which is like the most retarded thing possible because they're not validating anything. Whereas the intermediary step that's caused us some friction is I'm telling people to not build anything and go out and speak to your 400 followers on Instagram or your 20 people on your email list. And they're like, what? But what? They're like, the frequent feedback I get is, but what if nobody responds? And I'm like, do you want no one to respond to your questionnaire on your Instagram, or do you want no one to respond to your 4 months of building a product? Right? So people are willing to almost like sacrifice the time to delay the negativity, the response. Whereas with our recent program that we built, I built nothing. I had dengue, and I was like, I think I have a rough idea for an offer. Put it out, got like 50 comments back, and I was like, all right, let's build it. So I think like that, again, the scientific method effectively is not being utilized, you know? And that's where you have, and it's interesting, we can discuss even the supplement business on that specifically, because I think you have to go through this to some degree, right? Have you read Lean Startup? Yeah. So that was my first book I ever read. So you mentioned about, what was your first one you said? So I read Lean Startup in university. And ever since, whenever I haven't followed it, I've always just been I've just hated myself as a result, you know? And I've done that over and over again. But then I've got it right sometimes, you know? So sometimes you guys have to learn by putting your hand in the fucking fire, right? And just getting burnt.
So true. Biggest takeout from Eric Ries is just the MVP or MVS, minimal viable product or service, right? So you still have a proof of concept. I did the complete opposite of that with my first business.
So why did you start that business though? What was the logic there? Where were you in your lifespan and stuff?
Okay, I'll try and like long story short it for you, but it all kind of, as you said before, Steve Jobs in that commencement speech, you connect the dots in the back. Sorry, you connect the dots looking back in reverse, yeah? Like he was talking about the calligraphy class and how that then translated forward to the typography in Apple product. So I did go to university. I studied sports science. And I got a job for a Newcastle United football club. Okay, so I worked in professional football. So I managed, this is like classic case of like working class and actually success, all right? But I started as an intern. How I got in there is another story in and of itself of pure, utter persistence, okay? But when I was in there, I worked with the academy groups initially. So I started as an intern. And the academy groups go from 8 to 18, each in different age categories, so 8, 9, 10, 12, under 14, 16, and 18s, and you kind of graduate your progression up as you get more experience. So I saw a gap in the market when I was there. The kids' nutrition was horrible. Their parents are running, they're working full time, they've got the school run, and then they've got a like professional football player who's like 8, 9, 10. They have to add that in on top, so they're working full time, they're doing the school run. Some of them are traveling, not exaggerating, up to 3 hours each way, 4 times a week, to just get them to training. Like football's massive, or soccer is massive in the UK, particularly so in somewhere like Newcastle, because it's a religion. That is like the collective religion. You talk to anyone, taxi drivers, whatever, it's all football. It's all Newcastle. Okay, so
other sport really?
Yeah. There's
no rugby there, no cricket there really.
No, not really. It's all football. Particularly so in the northeast of England. Anyway, it's what they live for.
What's your? I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what's your thought on sport in general? Like, what's your thought process on, like, the cult of sport? Do you think it's not good for society? What's your thoughts?
I think it's a distraction. So I call it the circus.
Well, you go back to the Roman times, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's modern day Colosseum.
How do we get people to not revolt?
Don't get me wrong, it's entertainment, I think it is.
Of course.
Great, but it's a way of life in that environment anyway. Like, they will go to war for their football team, they won't go to war for their nation. You know what I mean?
Or for an increase in fucking wages or to build something. Do you get me? Well, that's because it's set up so perfectly, right? Like, it's an amusement park. These guys are freaks that come in. They're from like all over the world. They buy players, and then they just suit them by just putting them out like on their home team every second week and then whatever. And I think it's a big distraction towards what's going on at home, what's going on with your family, your finances and whatnot. And like, I grew up in Ireland, majority of people are fucking alcoholics, including my family. And then as a result, they spend their time in the pub at the weekend, right? So it's 9 to 5 and Monday to Friday, and then Saturday and Sunday. And the way it's engineered, it's, 12 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 7 o'clock games. And then you got to think about too, in Ireland there's also rugby on top of it. And rugby actually surpassed football for the most part, especially domestically. So that became huge. And then you have interprovincial rugby. And I was in that loop, bro. Like, I was playing rugby at a high level, so yeah, man, I just think that there's so much bigger problems that you need to solve versus sitting down and watching that all the time.
Bro, it just allows everyone to check out. It's the one thing they talk about and look forward to. And as I said, you probably couldn't take that away from someone. But it's like, it just fits perfectly into that matrix lifestyle of this is a distraction, this is what we're going to talk about. Like, their mood is governed by, did their team win or not the day before? Yeah, it's mad. But again, don't get me wrong, I enjoy watching sport, but it's not like a core part of my existence. It's not the only thing I'm talking about. Yeah, it's not teaching you anything, watching a bunch of millionaires who actually deserve, don't get me wrong, and this is a contentious thing as well, like they're entertainers, right? They have to go through pretty much hell a lot of the time to fight for their space in the first team, so they do actually kind of earn what they're worth. But then you've got the whole other moral issue of like, well, what about like someone who works for like a doctor or a fireman or whatever?
Then you have the other side, which is you look at the Olympics, right? And they're making like absolutely fucking nothing. And the history of that is the fact that they were making nothing before because it wasn't broadcasted, and now it's broadcasted, and now there is so much money, and it's actually not being distributed to athletes, and then they're not even getting the sponsorships anymore that they used to get, and yeah, it's a knock-on effect. So that's where it's funny. Whereas like sport, they're not getting paid too much, but they're getting paid because they're very high-quality athletes. But then there's other sports then that people commit. This is what's interesting. I wrote about this the weekend. Is that everything is difficult, everything requires sacrifice, everything requires time and effort, but it depends on what game you're playing. Is the outcome. So it's all hard. Agency, coaching, fucking SaaS, it's all hard. But depending on which vehicle you pick depends on the outcome. So unfortunately, the taxi driver works just as hard as some of the professional football players, but he will not get the same reward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't have picked a more difficult market with my first product as well and first business, because I literally, like, perfect blue ocean, okay? No competitors, no sharks swimming around, okay? And I thought that was a competitive advantage, and actually being one of the biggest hindrances that took me years to kind of figure out how to work. So dial it back to the story, working in a football club, seeing the kids, they're either skipping meals, they're getting snacks out of the vending machine, or most times they will drive by McDonald's. It's cheap, it's convenient, it's on the way home, it actually tastes good, but from a nutritional perspective, it's terrible for them, okay? So instead of speaking to the market and telling everyone about it, I was like, I'm going to invent like a commercial solution that ticks all of those boxes, so the kids can just have like an easy, cost-effective, tasty food powder shake afterwards. So it just kind of replaces the need for it, but it's actually healthy. Okay. So I took 2 years to make that product. 2 years. And that's like, I'm not selling anything, so I'm not making any sales or anything. It was literally a 2-year journey. And I'd never run a business before. I didn't have any money. Literally no money. I think at the time I was probably in 15 to 30k consumer debt. Like I wasn't working at a football club the whole time as well. I actually left that to go into corporate recruitment, which is another story in and of itself. But again, that's a crazy difficult sales. So it all kind of comes back to like who I am now and why I do what I do. Anyway, just stick on the nutrition stuff. 2 years, okay, imagine, like, not exaggerating. You've invested all this time, effort, resource. I'd even found an investor for the product. Come to push the website live, big launch event. How many sales? 0. 1. From my friend who felt sorry for me.
Oh, man. Well, at the end of the day, though, you always just need one person to believe in you, right?
For sure. But he wasn't part of the target market. He wasn't a parent. He didn't have kids. He wasn't a kid himself. So it was like there was no learnings from that at all. I think he just wanted to see, like, is it real? Something that actually used the product. Anyway, but just to, like, mirror what you said about, like, actually going to the market and having the discussion and asking the tough questions first, as opposed to investing time, effort, energy, resource, money into something and then getting crickets. Massive learning.
And I used to always look at like pre-sales and think like, you know, how do people do this? Like, what's going on? They must have huge audiences for this. But you actually don't. Like, and I learned this, I actually learned this indirectly from Lara Acosta. I don't know if you're familiar with her. She's a huge, like, personal brand, like, expert, I guess you put it that way. When I was going through her program, just, like, figuring it out, just seeing how it works. And she was like, yeah, I sold 40 of the 100 spots before it went live. It was 4,500. And I was like, sorry, what? And she was like, yeah, I just ran a webinar and I just gave over some details and went through some stuff and then just said, basically, this is the offer. And then she sold them beforehand. And I was, what did you do afterwards? And she's like, then I started building it. And she had 60 spots left. I was like, okay, so you've taken in 160K. And she was like, yeah. It was just like I just ran a webinar. And obviously she's a big audience, stuff like this. But it was like, we could take that microcosm example and boil it way down to something very small. Bro, you can go knocking on doors. You know, like you did, you know? So I just think that people make it more difficult for themselves sometimes. So walk me through that. Like, what did you learn in that experience and what would you have done differently?
It's one of those things where, and the same with like personal development or whatever, it's a process, not an event. And you think that I have to build this thing and then, what do they say? Build it and they will come. Not the case at all. Tell everyone about it, validate it. If they come, then build it. Okay? So you don't want to look for the confirmation bias. You want the opposite. You want to get out there and get real world, like attributable value from real people who have the potential to be your customers. But you want them to object. Once you have the objections, that is the data set that you need to then either overcome or pivot and get around. Don't wait until you've invested everything, even things that you didn't have, to then find, oh, actually they think it's this, or they're not going to buy it because of this. Okay, I managed to turn it around just by sheer brute force, will, and persistence. Okay, this brand still cash flows for me every single month, and I'm probably spending 2 hours maximum a week running it. Okay?
How much are you making a month?
For this business?
Yeah, how much is that making?
It's not huge. It's probably like 50, 60K a month.
Fucking hell.
It's small. But the fact that it's even alive is like testament to just the sheer brute force of will from my side to actually go out, get objective opinions, and then make the pivot. Okay, and this is like a long process. And remember, even when I'd launched, I still didn't have any money, and I'm like, oh shit, like I don't know anything about marketing. I can sell anything to anyone, but I don't know how to do it to digital medium. So that sent me on a whole journey of literally every single weekend I would travel the length and breadth of the UK and turn up to sports clubs, swim meets, Olympic events, football training with product. Obviously, I would speak to the organisation before and just let them know we're coming. Like, we're not going to charge anything. We're just going to give out free product, which still costs, okay? It cost me more to do that and give product than the amount of sales that I made, okay? But what it got me was real world proper feedback from parents. Is it this? What's in it? How does it work? Who else is using it? Why does it do this? Why is it different? All of these questions that I'm just collecting, getting that as a data set and then transferring that all online. And the ones who bought, I was able to lock them into a subscription because there was no other competitors. We were the first and by default the only and biggest. So once they were in and they enjoyed it, they would come back. It's a consumable. Again, perfect for business, for MRR, monthly recurring revenue. And I did that for maybe a year and a half, 2 years, until I had a big enough subscription base I was able to stop doing the traveling and doing the events, and I was able to move everything online. Okay, so, but like, that's 4 years, bro. That's 4 years, and I'm still not taking a salary out of this business. Right? That's mad. That's what I'm saying, the fact that it even exists is crazy. But I hadn't invested. That is another story. I can tell you very quickly, and I'll come back to it. So I was telling everyone, as like friends, about what I was doing. I was trying to get just people to play devil's advocate a little bit, as to like, is it real? Am I crazy? So I told maybe one or two friends, and then a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend, didn't know him. His dad had recently sold his company, and he was looking for just like small time investments just to diversify a bit. So he came to me and said, I heard about your idea. My dad just sold his company. Would you want to meet him? I'm like, yeah, sure. I remember like rocking up to that meeting. I'd never seen a millionaire before. I'd never been to a millionaire's house. Bro, I didn't even know what an entrepreneur was. I couldn't even spell it. Clueless, man. Turned up, massive, like, it's like a one-layer bungalow mansion thing, 4 Range Rovers on the drive. I'm like, what is this? Like, properly intimidating. Came in, the whole family was there. And there's the guy, like the guy's dad was sitting there, completely poker face. Like, hi. nothing. And like, I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go straight into it. Like no small talk or anything. I'm literally like shaking. I've got my little pitch deck. I still have the presentation somewhere. It's the worst pitch deck you'll ever see. It's probably like 6 slides, and it just basically goes in a little bit about me, about the idea, about the product, and what the potential earnings are for it. Terrible. But somehow I walked out of that room with 10K. But I think he believed in me. You could see the passion, you could see the drive, you could see all the experience in sales, you could see I actually directly worked for the football club. He saw there's no competitors in it, so he's like, okay, it's only 10K. Like, I'll probably spend that like on lunch, whatever, a couple of days ago, not a problem. But anyway, that...
What could you do with that money, though? That's the question.
Pretty much nothing. But to me, I'd never seen 10K before. I don't think I'd ever seen more than $2,000 in my account. Okay? So this was like, whoa, like I'm rich.
What percent did he take?
He took 15%. It was a very poorly leveraged deal because he had all of the calls. I'm literally going cap in hand, help me out, I've got nothing. Like, take a punt. So because the risk is very high. Like, risk, investing in general is all about risk mitigation, okay? He's like, guy's never run a business before. He's super nervous and scared. Doesn't fill me with confidence. The product's never been made before. There's no established market there before. So it's like risk. So I was like, I think he said 20. I got him down to 15. I was like, okay, that'll do. Like that's fine. I'll take it. Bro, to be fair, even if he said 50, I probably would have went, yeah. I just wanted to I needed to monetize this somewhere. But I'm thinking 10K. I can do everything for 10K. I can turn this into a proper cash flowing business. Okay, you mad, bro?
Dude, one thing I'll say to you on this, this is the beauty of this. So if you've ever read Leaders Eat Last, he mentions it around resourcefulness. So the reason why small, scrappy startups innovate, I hate that fucking word, but innovate, find creative solutions, is because they're back against the wall. It's primitive. It's more like how do we make what we have work? So we'll be like, oh yeah, you ring that person and this person will help out. And then I'll cut that guy's lawn so he does this for me and da-da-da. So it's more resourcefulness. If you compare that to bigger organizations, because they don't have that literally I'm going to die and end up on the street effect, they're not as scrappy and the creativeness kind of oozes out of them. So what got them there will not keep them there. And the only exception to that in the entire world is Apple, because even Microsoft, especially through Steve Ballmer, or I forget his full surname, so their idea was a PC on every table. And when they had grown really big, that goal had kind of subsided. So they just stopped innovating, stopped being creative. And Apple is still the only company that's actually looking for new things, as in just like an invention. Like the AirPods were like an invention, you know what I mean?
Yeah, bro, it's so true. If he had given me 200K that day, I would have found a way to spend 200K in 6 months. But he gave me 10K, okay? So now every single penny has to be accounted for. I'm scrapping, I'm pushing back on supplies, all of this stuff. Penny pinching, literally. I'm scared to touch the pot because I know when it's gone, it's gone. And he's basically entrusted me to be a careful steward of his money and come back with a return on investment, even if that's just getting his money back as a bare minimum, okay? So I've got all of this additional pressure on my shoulders, but I use that as a driving force. I was like, I'll let myself down. I won't let someone else down. That's not going to happen. But because I haven't got much to play with, I'm going to do as much of everything myself, which ended up being the best thing that ever happened. Because if I was able to outsource and just hire contractors or whatever, yes, the job would have been done a lot better, a lot quicker. But I wouldn't have learned all of the technology stacks, the whole mindset side of things. It sent me down and it fueled me on this personal development journey where I had to learn absolutely everything about direct-to-consumer e-commerce and Shopify and digital marketing. I didn't have, YouTube back in 2014, 2015. It wasn't cool to be an entrepreneur. Shopify recently launched. There's no tutorials on YouTube where you've got a problem on your email marketing or whatever, or there's an issue on your store. I had to figure everything out myself. So that's why it took me so long to get anywhere. But I was able, as an entrepreneur, you probably wear 10 different hats every day anyway, okay? I'm wearing 50. I'm buying books on accounting. I did my own accounts, okay? I built my own website. Nothing qualifies me to run a business, to get investment, to build a website, to invent a product, to manage people. Nothing qualifies me to do that. I qualified myself to do it, okay, by sheer drive, willpower. But it made for such a better business and such a better person from my side that I can look back and actually be grateful for it. Because without it, I wouldn't have the depth and breadth of skill set to be able to plug me into any business now, literally any business, and become a force multiplier. So I'm like super grateful for it. But in the moment, it is crazy stressful. Really, really is. But anyway, like say even with the product, you've got 10K to play with. The manufacturing is probably going to cost 4 or 5K if I find someone with small enough minimum order quantities. I phoned 52 manufacturers. Now, the food industry is super slow. It's also that they don't have websites. They're hard to find. Like they don't do registry in yellow pages or whatever. So even just the detective work to try and find these contract manufacturers, out of the 52, 50 said no. Okay, and the 2 that did, one of them ended up working with us because it was a smaller like guy who was technically still a startup, so he took a punt on the market and on me, and we still work with them to now, literally the same manufacturer, and ended up being a good bet for him, which is amazing. But again, just testament to the sheer will and brute force to overcome inertia at the beginning of a business. They say, I would give that example of like a strong man pulling a truck. Like 80-90% of the effort is just getting it to move that first couple of inches, and then it's a case of once an object is in motion, it stays in motion unless acted on by equal or opposite greater force, Newton's first or second law. Okay, same thing with business. If you can, comes back to mindset, if you're able to actually push through and do what is required of you, or become the person who is able and capable of doing whatever it requires of you. This is why it's not who am I, it's who am I becoming. It's not a fixed mindset, it's a growth mindset. And that's like that is another book recommendation. I think is it Carol Dweck, Mindset. Like that book should be in every single school curriculum. The fact that it's not is crazy. But anyway, just the fact that you are not an entrepreneur, you are a problem solver. You're a problemologist. I stole that from MJ DeMarco. That's your job title, okay? And in the beginning, your biggest task is your chief sales officer. You're not CEO. You don't get to delegate. Particularly so if you haven't got any experience or you don't have a huge amount of money behind you. Okay, you've got to be singing and dancing. You've got to be the biggest salesman for the business. Okay, no one's going to do it for you. In business, no one is coming to save you. No one. It's not a thing. It's up to you to evolve, really, right? And it's not survival of the fittest, it's those most adaptable to change. And that applies, again, I always bring the physics back into like the business and the mindset side of things because they're universal principles.
Do you want to launch a podcast for your business, but you don't know where to start? Remove the stress, pressure, and all the overwhelm that comes with it by working with Podcast University. If you're an ambitious individual who wants to build your influence online, grow your own podcast, and also stand out from the crowd, Podcast University is for you. We help you with the strategy, equipment, the content, your guests, everything you need to create a top-tier podcast. If you want to learn more, check out Podcast University and start your podcast journey today. 100%, right? It's like the laws of nature, right? So it's equal and opposite pushing forces. I think what's interesting here is like, you know, you cut your teeth in ecom and you've repeated it. And I'd like to get into how like you've been able to repeat this over and over again. But it's such a tough business, bro. Like, and I don't think I said this to you when we met about my entrance into e-commerce. Yes, bro. Bro, listen to this. You're going to love this. You're going to love this. So I actually was going to say it to you. So, you know, my startup, my grow up phase was I was running parties. You know this, right? Oh, this is interesting. This is a good story.
Like Chris Williamson level, like nightclub?
Yeah, but these were all like illegal parties. These were like raves and shit. So I ran like when I was younger, like really, really young, I was running like high school balls and like collecting cash in my pants, like with plastic bags and stuff like this. As in like basically selling out and then being like, fuck, we don't have a venue. And then just finding like a hotel and then just packing a bunch of 16-year-olds in there and everyone's like drinking and shit. And then as I got a bit older, I started running like mystery tours. So get people on a bus, bring them to like random place. Then older than that, I started running more like rave events. So booking out venues and stuff like this. And then I was like, okay, I'm done with this shit because basically it was good, but it was just like very, it wasn't sustainable. But I love music. I've always loved music. I've always been into house and techno, and I just love like production and music in general. So when I moved to London, specifically, music scene in 2018, 2019 was booming. Like you lived in London too, right? That printwork scene, the fabric scene, it literally exploded onto the scene when printworks opened specifically. And I noticed when I moved to London that everybody's like clothes was just miles ahead of like anywhere else in Ireland or whatever. Specifically vintage clothing. 90s clothing, Puma, Nike, Adidas. And people like Urban Outfitters was obviously like 150 quid or 200 quid for like a Stone Island jacket or whatever. And then one of my mates who was on my podcast called Rory, I forget his surname, he had a company called True Vintage. And True Vintage was like a cheaper version of Urban Outfitters. And I was walking through Urban Outfitters one day and I just saw him. And then he had like all this pop-up shit happening. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, what's the story here? But he'd been years into this now. He was like 6-7 years into it. They were doing a lot. They were all on Shopify and everything. And then I was like, fuck, I think there's like another opportunity we could do from here. So then I spun that kind of idea into my own rendition of it. And it was basically looking at like markets outside of the UK. So at this point, I'm like, okay, I go on to Shopify, build a store out, all this kind of shit. I got all these like vintage clothing from Italy in Naples. So once a month, I would get a box shipped from Naples to my apartment in London. Okay, but the box, you don't know what's in it. It's because it's vintage clothing. It gets graded A, B, or C, and in there could be some like shirts and whatnot. And the A box is always super expensive. The C box is obviously so shit, and the B box is kind of like the best of both worlds. To see. So I was basically getting these clothes in, listing them on Shopify, listing them like Etsy and stuff, and they were just selling, bro. But because they were heavy jackets and everything, shipping. So sending a jacket from the UK to like Canada, which was so common, Canada and New York was so common, it was so expensive. That wasn't much of an issue though. I kind of got around that because the product was so expensive. Like some of those jackets are like $70 to $120 or whatever. But then what hit me was like cash flow. Was because I was running ads. It was the first time I'd ever done anything in my entire life. So basically I'd buy a box for 2K, sell it for 5K, but then the 3K would have been spending on ads. So I basically end up at the same position that I'm in, you know? Yeah, exactly. And I come in, I bring in another box. And it was so rough, bro. Like it was really, really tough, but I loved it. Like I really enjoyed it. And then I was like, this is just not sustainable. And then it came to a crashing end. We'll get into that another day. But the reason I'm saying this is because I just have such respect for like people like yourself, like Matt Kelly. Matt's been on the podcast a few times too. Yeah, and like, you know, his story with Midnight, what was it called? Midnight something, his last brand. Just because if you compare that to like the coaching model, the service business model, it's just easier. Like there's no better way to put it than the word, it's just easier.
So true. Like the cash flow thing almost stung me as well. And as I said, I just go back to that launch phase. I must have been buying the product. It was expensive because they were able to do like a low MOQ because it was the first batch. And I think I only got like 50 of each flavor. So not a huge amount, which meant when you have a low MOQ, you don't have any scale of economy. A scale of economy is a minimum order quantity. And then your scale of economy is basically a relative formulation of the more you order, the lower the cost is, because they can buy in bulk and they can pass that down. So ours is like super expensive, first iteration of the product, small batch, so it's obviously costing a lot more to make and manufacture and sell. I remember like I was selling the product for 29, 30, and I was buying it for 17, 18. Okay, so it left me absolutely no margin. And then I would launch the store. I'm doing like 20% discount, 45% discount, just anything to get sales through the door. So I didn't realize the maths of everything. And thankfully, I run it with a business partner who I also worked with at the football club. He is a lot more operationally minded, and he was like, whoa, like, we need to stop this. Like, this is not sustainable, particularly so because we had enough money in the beginning to buy one batch, and that's it. For us to be able to go back and repurchase, we obviously had to sell the batch and at least break even. If we're selling it like at a loss, we're screwed. Okay. So, yeah. So this again put me on a whole other thing, and this is why I ended up like reading accounting and understanding that and deep diving the unit economics. This is like a science in of itself, but in any business, but more so e-com, cash is king. And you really need to have a good, thorough, like deep understanding of your economics and your cash flow, because if you don't, it will kill you straight away. I was very basic because I'd never run a business before. I'm thinking, okay, I'll simplify it. Let's buy something for 10 and sell it for 20. I've made $10. Okay. All right. So the first 10 is going to rebuy the product. That's assuming that you buy the same quantity of products. Okay. If you double up, obviously it's going to be a lot more, but then it's a little bit cheaper. So your margin on the back end Does it make sense? Is better, but it's more of a long-term play. Now, of that $10 profit you've made, you have to factor in tax, VAT. Okay, that's 20% gone. Okay, so now I'm down to like 8. I then have to think about my operational overhead, so OPEX, software costs. So there's maybe another 3. Then I have to think about, am I going to be able to pay myself to make it sustainable? Now, instead of that 5, I'm actually down 20. And the biggest thing no one thinks about is the acquisition cost for the customer. How much is it costing you to acquire that customer? Okay, so you're in the red before you've like even done anything. Okay, and thankfully we caught it quick enough, and we were able to pivot strategy. And that's why instead of selling online, we did like the manual thing. We couldn't afford to do digital marketing. We didn't have any experience. We couldn't afford a contractor or anything to do it because we only had that 10 grand. Okay. Now, the caveat, we did end up going back for more investment from the same investor, but it was very intelligent the way he did it. He kind of drip fed it based on targets, on revenue targets, of being able to sell. But the reason we needed to go back was we actually did need some money to be able to market the product, and also we wanted to be able to buy more product because our bottleneck eventually ended up being we can't keep stocking quick enough, so like we sell it quicker than because of the lead times, all of that. So we needed like that cycle going, and we wanted to be able to improve our margin, which meant we need to order more. Okay, so yeah, that whole unit economics things. Now I teach a lot of entrepreneurs. Okay, this is what I'm pivoting into now. Is instead of like doing and running, I'm moving into teaching, and I absolutely love it. You probably know I can talk business all day, every day with anyone. I love it. So now if I can pivot and get paid for that, there is no better way of living for me. I love it. 9 out of 10 entrepreneurs who come to me, irrespective of what the stage they're at, do not understand a profit and loss statement and a balance sheet. They have no, other than like a very rough, like I said before, buy 10, sell for 20, rough unit economics. They do not know how everything breaks down. And this is why most e-com businesses fail. They don't know, they don't take the time out, and it ends up happens to them, and they're completely oblivious and they don't know why. So the first thing I do is 2 things. One is get them to do a very thorough deep dive on their avatar and their customer profile. And the other one, the most important, is cash flow. I've got a very basic spreadsheet. So I have a school community. It's actually free, hosted on there if you join, okay? Because it's that important. Like I'm literally giving it away for free. I'm like, if you want to make a sustainable e-com business, you have to understand your unit economics. Very simple calculator, but it builds in cells for everything that I said, like your operational overheads, tax, whatever you're paying yourself, cost of the product, all of that stuff. No, everyone gets it wrong. How on earth can you run a sustainable brand if you don't understand your unit economics? I think about it. The whole reason you got into business probably was to be able to, for it to fund a lifestyle where you're free of a job, you're able to travel, you have that time, location, financial freedom. If you get that wrong, the foundational principle, like the whole point of what makes a business sustainable is you have to run it profitably. You have to, yeah? You can't run like the banks run where they're insolvent essentially, okay? It's illegal to do that anyway, okay? And irrespective, we'd run out of cash very quickly. So again, first thing, and I recommend anyone who's in e-com listening to this, really do take time to understand your margin, and not just on the front end. This is where a lot go wrong because everyone in e-com is so focused on customer acquisition. It's probably the same with services, to be fair. Also focused on leads. Yeah,
from GP to net profit.
Yeah, no one actually thinks about retention.
Dude, do you know Dickie Bush and Nicholas Cole? I'm actually interviewing them soon. He said the funniest thing ever. It was just like, you know, especially in your space of like e-com and stuff, people are like, oh, like, you know, we're like a 7-figure business, but what that actually means is like 1 month you did a launch, brought a lot of people in, okay, and now you only have money from January, and there's no money for anything else. But it's actually the money you made minus your expenses, minus your operating expenses, minus tax, minus depreciation. He's like, when you get to the very, 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 very bottom figure, you actually have no money. And that's just the reality of actually most businesses. That's why the coaching side is interesting, because it's super lean. Now, obviously, it's a different angle completely. But that's why just e-commerce is so much more complicated. Because all those like nuances, like the supplier side, even infantry. I know yours is a supplement, but like any sort of food object or whatever, that has a shelf life effectively too, right?
You've got a ticking clock on selling it. No, again, if anyone listening who's in e-com or even services, just don't be so obsessed with leads, with the funnel. Like I call it the eternal funnel, and this is like one of the key points of difference with the way I run brands versus everything else, like a standard dropshipping brand who's just focused on acquisition. So look, think of a funnel. It's like a inverse triangle: top of funnel, middle of funnel. Yeah, trying to break the mic. Mine goes like this. Okay, so yes, you're funneling in, and obviously there's lower people as you get down to the conversion, but then once you get them, you keep them. You keep them coming back, you get them in the cycle, and this is how you build a brand. This is how you build something that's sustainable and can cash flow. This is where your MRR comes through. Okay, if you're just solely focused on the front end, unless you have very high margins, then it's very difficult to scale. Okay, so there's multiple tactics and strategies to be able to do that. But once you get a customer, instead of them just buying once, if you can get them coming back, if you can turn them into a brand advocate, if you can, I call it superior unexpected customer service, all of that stuff, from the product offerings to the integrations or the interactions with the brand, all of your automations on the back end is all about giving value, extracting. You're still extracting cash from them, but it's a reciprocal relationship where they will not go to anyone else because they feel so close, and that you build an emotional bond with the brand. Okay, like think of, I don't know, use Nike as an example, right? Yes, they sell sports good, but they don't. They sell an ideal. They sell a way of life, right? Exactly, yeah, and that's what. There's an emotional connection there. That's what will, if you're in a competitive market space, this is what's going to differentiate you. This is what's going to give you the ancillary cash flow to be able to scale and sustain. Okay, you can deep dive into this if you want, but say you've got a common objection. You've got two types of products. You've got discretionary product, and then you have, it'll come back to me, but anyway, the difference between the two products is one of them you can build MRR into, so like a supplement. You use it, it runs out naturally, then they can rebuy it again, okay? The other one is more of a one-time purchase. So say, use the example of a massage gun. Okay, it's a utility product, sorry. So you got utility and discretionary, different types of product categories. So this is something someone is going to see online, they're going to buy it once. Like they don't need to buy another massage gun. This should last 3 years or something, okay? So how do you then extract more money out of these guys? What would you say before I tell you?
If it's a massage gun, I'm trying to give an example. Like you're obviously gonna have like upsells and whatnot, but I'm trying to give it. What would you position there? That's reoccurring.
It doesn't have to be recurring. It just has to have more money coming in and keep them coming back to you and no one else.
I don't even know in that example.
Okay, so because we're not building like a one-time pump and dump thing like the dropshippers do, we're building like a brand and a lifestyle brand as well, something that gives you that time, location, and financial freedom. You really need to have a deep understanding of who is buying this product. And once you understand that, you're able to service them, okay? So they've bought a massage gun, okay, yes, you can do upsells, or can you get them into a funnel where they've got different heads or different attachments to put onto it? They're going to come back. Now you understand they're gym guys, certain age. What else can you sell them? Like, I don't know, ab mats, or can you add in other products to do with the gym? And that, because you have a relationship with them, they bought from you before, they've had the service, they've got good experience. If you're now expanding your range, okay, you can service and you can provide or solve other problems for them that other brands are doing, but you can do it because they have that existing relationship, okay? Why are they going to take a chance on an unknown brand or something when they already have a good experience with you and they can just buy straight away for something else? Like there's an infinite amount of things that you can do, but it comes down to how well do you know your consumer and how can you service them outside of the box? Yeah, or, last thing, you can diversify the range as well. So you can bring out a new iteration of the massage gun, I don't know, different speeds, different settings. I'm riffing here on that, just off the top of my head. So you can bring out a new version every 2 years. It's better, it's superior, just like Apple do. Okay, the iPhone technically should last you like 5 years, but they update it all the time. Okay, and they keep you in that ecosystem by offering similar affinity products that they know someone who buys this is also going to have utility for, and they link everything together.
And that goes deeper than just the Apple, like the iPod itself as well, because you also have the operating system, and that's the biggest indoctrination, right? It's it's the fact that now all of your apps are here, and like I had an iPhone and like AirPods before I had a Mac, and I was like, fuck this fucking PC, and I was like, he's like, give me the Mac, and then everything is synced.
Yeah, so that's your two ways of doing it.
That's a cult.
So you either have You either have the utility product, which has MRR built into it, which you can also still diversify. You can still bring other affinity products out. Or if you're like drop shipping as well, go back to the massage gun side of things. You start by picking a good product, okay? Something that solves a very real problem. You're not selling fidget spinners, okay? You're not jumping on a fad because there's no longevity built into it. We want something that's sustainable, okay? Not pump and dump. It's the worst way to run a business. So now you've got something, you've built a bit of you've established product market fit. Now it's time to improve the product. Now you can custom brand it. Now you can improve it. Now you can go to the suppliers. What can we do R&D side of things to make this better? Now you've got a point of difference. Now you have a moat around your brand. Yeah, this is how you build. This is how you scale. It's not just a case of like buy a product and sell it. Ride that wave in. Next thing, because it doesn't allow anything to compound. You'll end up with a massive email database, but you won't be able to sell from them because there's no affinity. This is how you brand build, and that's all I'm focused on. And this is my like big point of difference in the way I'm teaching, is I know how to build brands. I know how to sell anything online. There's never been a better time, in my opinion, to set up an e-com business. The barrier to entry is so low. Like there was no AliExpress, Shopify wasn't very good. Facebook ads was very manual. Now it's very automated with AI. The barrier to entry has never been lower. And how many YouTube videos and gurus are there telling you and teaching you? And pretty much most of it's for free. 99% of it's there for free. If you have a problem, you can do it. I didn't have that. Okay, so now is literally the best time to get into it. But it's not just a case of like find and sell and just stay on that kind of drop shipping thing. It's no fun at all. You want to build something that is sustainable, something that is scalable. And the whole point of the exit plan for an e-com business is when you have a saleable asset, which is the brand that can literally plug and play to another big brand, and they can just add on that cash flow. Or it's like they already have existing brand, and you can like complement their set. This is your exit strategy in e-com. If you just pump and dump, like it's literally it's no fun whatsoever. But there is a way to do it, and that's what I'm teaching now. Okay, that's long term. It's not short term. This is a long term vision that can literally and does literally change lives.
Yeah, and there's a lot of similarities between that and service, because the worst services are the one that is just one size fits all, right? So like let's say you come into me and you're like, hey, I have a problem with my content and I kind of want to do like one episode a month or whatever. And if I'm like, no, we have to do 4 and we run everything for you. And you're like, oh, but I want to learn how to write on Instagram. I'm like, no, we write everything. As a result, you never service anyone, because like you have to find someone with such similarity in the problem, which is kind of like how you start. You start with one product and then you hear from the signals that come back that there needs to be something else. And I think what's built our moat quite well is the fact that we can service people up and down there on a done for you offer. So some people want to do 1, some people want to do 2, whatever. And then there's the other side of, we have some like standalone products. We have the incubator. There's a few other ways basically. So as a result, there's 2 things. 1, it's very scalable. And then 2, it's tending more towards the customer versus the inverse way. Now, I want to ask you about the client side of stuff that you were doing. So you were working as a growth partner for quite some time. How the fuck did you scale that up? Like, I know you had a lot of clients. You're doing a lot of things done for you. I saw some of the back ends and stuff you were doing as well. So you're basically building out their infrastructure on the back end. How did you do that?
Just finish your other point before I get into this. How I was saying that the barrier to entry has never been lower. That conversely means, remember, like every upside is an equal opposite downside. Every action is equal opposite reaction. And that means for e-com that the competition has also never been higher. Okay, low barrier to entry. It's that saying, like, if it's easy, everyone would do it, or if it's easy, it wouldn't be worth it. That ends up being the case, and this is why building a brand, a sustainable brand with a clear point of difference and a moat built around it. This is why this is important, and this is how you differentiate from everything and anyone else. Okay, it makes it sustainable. Okay, right. Question was on how did I get into the growth partner side of things?
Yeah, because like client services and managing clients is a whole different beast, right? Same skills though, I will say, to some degree, but the client side is a whole different beast.
The principles are universal for business. They're transferable, and that's why you always want to look at for those like overarching principles, because they are like you can plug and play anywhere. It's obviously nuanced, but that's another thing that you just kind of learn to be plug and play. So the way I got into the growth partnering, so I've run this nutrition business for 2 or 3 years. It's now doing good revenue. It's kind of given me what I wanted. Like I've not have to work a job. I can work from anywhere as long as I got my laptop and internet connection perfect. Wasn't quite giving me financial freedom, but I wasn't dependent on anything or anyone else. I was my own boss, okay? So my ex's dad, my girlfriend at the time, was a professional golfer, and professional golfer to the level of played on tour, okay? He was in his 60s, early 60s, so he's retired, and he, for the last 30, 40 years, did a lot of the club head development for some of the biggest brands. So this guy's got, what, combined 40 years experience in golf club head manufacturing, okay, played at the top level, very well networked. Instead of consulting for the big brands, he decided, actually, I've got all these ideas, and I've got all these big commercial successes, I'm getting nothing for it, I'm just going to build my own brand. So this is the guide, like the perfect. Have you ever read, what's it called? The E-Myth Revisited. Yeah, he separates like types of entrepreneurs. This is the technician, okay? So very good, probably one of the best in the world in golf club head manufacture with his network and all of that combined experience. He did not know how to run an e-com business. He's boomer, like he doesn't understand really technology, at least not to the depth that I do. Okay, doesn't know anything about selling direct to consumer online, never built a website before. So he came to me and was like, will you help us? So I'm going to do the product. I need you to do all of the digital, literally everything, end to end. But because he saw the success it had in a very difficult market that didn't exist, bringing something from, like it's Bob Proctor thing, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand, okay? That's exactly what I'd done with this nutrition company. It made it a success. So it's like, surely if you can do that and you're battling uphill, you can do this, and now you can go downstream in an established market, in a market which isn't price sensitive. It's quite a wealthy demographic as well. So he invented this wedge set. There was a conforming and a non-conforming set. Good point of difference. It was just wedges, and it was all about getting backspin on the greens. So they basically built a brand around the short game of a golfer. Really, really good point of difference, and very cool to like market, because it's all about, you can literally video someone hitting the wedge shot and it'll bounce, and then zip back. Sure. Super cool, okay? So even from a marketing perspective, you have an established market, they're not price sensitive, they're always looking for new things. It's a very status oriented market as well, because it's affluent. So like, obviously you want to be able to show off in front of your mates. So like, perfect recipe for success, literally. Okay, so I saw that and I was like, okay, whatever, let's do it. It's a very good marriage of skill sets. So took a year and a half of building this. I did all the digital. When we launched that, it was 2019, just before COVID. And bro, that literally just rocketed. It went to like, 6 figures a month really quickly. But again, it was just like, it's very hard to manufacture. Looking from the outside, actually you've got someone who's been through like torture and hell to learn how to sell. And then you've got a 60-year-old with 40 years combined experience, probably 50 years. He started golfing when he was like 12, okay? Like that is hard to emulate, but at the same time, this is the importance of strategic partnerships and being able to leverage other people's experience. That's another way you can kind of bypass and shortcut things, okay? So that just like went incredibly well. Now, the inadvertent repercussions of that was I was like posting results and stuff, just like sales. I was trying to do the build in public thing before it was even a thing, so I wasn't really consistent at it. But anyway,
Where were you doing that?
it's on Twitter. Yeah, I wasn't really like consistent with it, but I was just starting to tell my story. And that is my biggest regret, by the way, of this whole journey, is not documenting it.
Yeah, man, just fuck all about you online.
So I'm so angry that I didn't do it. But that's why I'm starting now. Like whatever. Best time was 10 years ago.
Exactly.
Second best is now. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
It only makes sense when you're successful, right?
Yeah, exactly. Otherwise, exactly. There's no story to tell. So a golf brand reached out. So what you're doing with this brand?
Can you give me some numbers first, though? So you have that. How much are you making the nutrition brand, supplement brand, and then the golf brand? Because this is important, right?
Yeah.
How much you scale those together.
Okay. So nutrition brand's still kind of ticking over, as I said, like 40, 50, 60K a month. And then the golf brand went from 0 to 6 figures probably in like 6 months or so. And I don't know if there was a compound effect of COVID as well. So you talk about like timing and execution. So good marriage of skill sets. And then COVID happened, March 2020. Okay, I built all the systems. It was like primed, ready to go. We were making sales as well. COVID happened and all of a sudden everyone's locked down. But what can you do? You can go outside, you can play golf solo, okay? Wasn't properly like locked off yet. And certain places like you could still go out and do that. everyone has all of a sudden a lot more disposable income. So again, like the timing on it is like perfect. Yeah, exactly. And then a lot of the golf influencers, the big ones, so like the Rick Shields, Peter Finch, you probably not know them if you in golf, like these are like big guys. They don't have like the same content pipeline, and they're still kind of on the up as well. Like influencer marketing is a thing, but it's not a massive thing yet. So getting the wedges out to them to do a review, like shit ton of views, all of that stuff. It again just helps on the brand building, gets the narrative, and it's external proofing that the product does what it says it's supposed to do, because they're not going to lie. You're not paying them to do reviews. You're literally saying, here's the product, this is what it does. If it doesn't work, tell everyone it doesn't work. It's that level of like hands-off approach, the way I do influencer marketing. I don't want anything to be biased. I don't want it to be like an ad, because the authenticity comes through. And you have to kind of trust that your product does, particularly so if it's taking you that long to make and manufacture, and the whole R&D process it has to do what it says on the tin. Otherwise, what's the point?
I wonder how much did it cost you to produce the product, like the partner you had?
How much the golf club?
Yeah, just for context for people, like how much would that cost to produce a year and a half of R&D?
Wasn't that much. It's more so, I don't know, I think it was like 60K or something. Okay, but this guy's like he's self-funded. He also like found an investor. He didn't need it. He just wanted to leverage. Yeah, so I think it was about 50-60K anyway. So again, that's what I'm saying. You still kind of need money to make money, but you don't need to use your own. You can leverage OPM, other people's money. If you have a good idea, if you have a good story, like it doesn't. You don't have to be trapped in that. I don't have the experience, or I'm in debt. I was in the same thing, and I still managed to make something out of it. Just by, again, sheer persistence and brute force to force and bend life to your will. Because as I said, no one is coming to save you. Great if they are, but they're not. And even if they do, even if you do strike it lucky first time and get the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, you will learn nothing. You will get back to zero probably in another 2 or 3 years. They do the study on the millionaires, right? It's something like within 3 to 5 years, the millionaire winners end up back at zero and actually in debt. Because they've just they've just spunked it all on lifestyle, upgrading their lifestyle, and they're buying depreciating liabilities instead of assets. They don't have the mindset, the training to be able to manage money. Okay, and that's why I say it's like, who are you becoming? You need to become someone worthy of that success, and that is a process, not an event. Anyway, so golf brand doing really well. Another brand reached out, so I was doing and said, "Oh, will you help us?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" It's not taking up a huge amount of my time. And so say this golf brand, the first golf brand, this is a team of 3. It's me, my ex's dad, and his son, doing, I don't know, like 1-2 mil from a garage. You know, when you talk about cash flow, the margins on these golf clubs are crazy high. Okay, the marketing was super low because you've got all this leveraged experience, a hot market, a hot product. Okay, so that was another thing where the bottleneck is we couldn't produce product quick enough, and COVID knocked up the supply chain. Again, just with everyone being off and stuff, so that held up a lot. That cost a lot. The opportunity cost of that was pretty high.
Have your coffee, bro, as well.
Yeah, well.
It's a long session.
Oh, bro, I know. I could go all day on this.
Of course,
Literally.
but
Let me finish it and I'll come back.
Of course, but it's just interesting. Just like the supply chain is just the biggest thing, right? That's what it seems to be here. Is that no matter if you're huge or small.
No, but the you know what I was saying, the food industry is slow. It's the same in any industry because these manufacturers need volume. They want repeat volume. If you're a small nobody that no one knows and they have to take a risk and they have to do all this R&D with you and they're going to get a minimum order quantity, it's not worth that time. So it's the same in golf. The other thing, the other superpower with the first golf brand was around that time, no golf brand sold direct to consumer. It was all the traditional route of going into pro shops. And you would get fitted or whatever, or the local pro would like kind of kit you out. So we had a bit of a competitive advantage on there. But anyway, the big brands were like whipping up and buying all of the shafts or the components, other materials, because obviously if there's an uplift in golf, they're always going to get priority on components, etc. So we're like last on the list because, okay, yes, we're doing well, we're putting bigger orders in, but we're putting 100K order in, they're putting 10 million order in. Obviously, you're going to prioritize that, okay? So yeah, that's another thing that was just like the timing on it was perfect. But you couldn't manufacture that. You know, they say, what's the saying? Success is preparation plus opportunity. Is that right?
Something like that.
Yeah, but think about it, right? So success, how have you governed and defined that? It is a case of the preparation. So you're doing the work in the dark when no one's seeing it. So you're prepared. And when the opportunity comes, you're either going to be ready for that opportunity or you're going to be underprepared and it's going to go. Okay? That's why it's a process, not an event. But you still have to do the work. When no one sees it, you're getting no success. It's super difficult. And only at that point can you be primed and ready to take the opportunity. It's just like investing in the stock market or whatever. You have to be prepared and ready to buy the dip. If you don't have the cash or the assets to do it, then it's just going to bypass you, okay? Or things will happen to you and you call it fate. You'll end up somewhere you don't want to be and you'll call it fate, okay? So there's still like a strong element of all of these other things, these backstories had to happen to be primed at the right time, at the right place for this to do well, okay? So it's not luck. You create your own luck. There's no such thing as luck. Yeah, luck is a dividend of sweat, okay? So this is the way I've been able to reconcile this information because it's been such a hard and long drawn out journey. Okay, so Golfball's doing well. A golf ball brand in Taiwan who manufacture for like some of the biggest brands wanted to do their own spin-off of their own golf balls. So like, oh, can you do what you've done for them for me? I'm like, yeah, okay. Help them. Another brand in Scotland came to me, stuck at like 20, 30K a month, wants to get to 100K. I was like, okay, well, here's what I'm doing with this brand. He came to me, I think, literally off Twitter as well. My Twitter only had like 12 followers or something, okay? I took him to 6-figure months in 3 months. From like a zero start, I can show you the screenshots if you want. It's pretty cool. And he's just done his first 7-figure, profitably as well. Like literally in record time. And that's just off the way I've been able to procedurize, document, and implement. It's literally like a 7-step framework. It's like a roadmap. Everything I did for the nutrition company, the first golf company, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, it was 7 at one point this year, is exactly the same process.
Are you an entrepreneur who wants to build your influence and authority online? You may have tried some of the hacks and tricks, but none of it has worked. And it makes sense. 90% of podcasts don't make it to episode 3. Of the 10% that are left, 90% of them don't make it to episode 20. That's where Voix comes in. Voix creates, manages, and grows your podcast for you on your behalf. If you've not been getting leads, not been growing consistently, you haven't found your tribe, and you don't know what to do, Voix is the answer. Don't just take our word for it. In the past couple of years, we've managed over 35 podcasts. We've also been able to generate over 55 million views with 500 episodes produced. And not only that, generating over $1 million for our clients in products, services, and sponsorships. So if you want to learn more about how you can build a great podcast and have it fully managed for you, schedule a call with me at Voix and we will help you achieve your podcast goals. 100%. 100%. And bro, it's turnkey at the end because this is what's interesting in the sales side. Because, you know, when you get on those calls and you're like, oh yeah, I've done this for the company in Taiwan, this other company, and it's going to, basically, we're going to do this to you. If someone is intelligent on the entrepreneur side, they'll say, let's go, let's do that here. What some people who are not intelligent will say, oh, but we're different, we want to do it a different way, whatever. And that's why it doesn't work. Because if you have something that's repeatable, you do that and not something new. Like if your system is that, so like what we do at podcast is strategy, growth, monetization. And if someone's like, yeah, but I want to do it this way, or I might run ads to the podcast, I'm like, we're not the one for you. Because what we're doing is this, and that's what's funny because you want a turnkey. I literally wrote about this yesterday. If you buy an iPhone, you don't want a slightly different operating system from him or from you. You want the same operating system, right? But I think that's when like you get people who are actually just, they don't understand this shit, right? Is that that's what you want. You don't want to go in and buy 2 different types of apples. It's the same fucking apple you want to get, right? Consistently. But it's just funny though, man, because like that's why all of these systems are so important, which is like kind of like how I breed you, even our life, man, like your health system, your food system, relationship system, how much time you put into your relationship, even into managing your money, like with your cash flow. You don't want to manage your cash flow slightly differently from that client to that client to that client. It's the same way of doing it. But for some people, I think the reason why is because it's not new and novel. And because of that, they go seeking the novelty. But bro, keep the novelty to your lifestyle, bro. You know what I mean? Like in winning your business, no matter what you're doing, it should be super turnkey.
Bro, model the traits of the greats. Stand on the shoulders of giants. And success leaves clues. Okay, if it's working, it's like that classic thing of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Okay, if you go about and navigate yourself and like, okay, I know this works, but I'm going to prove myself wrong. You're just wasting your own and everyone else's time. If something works, right, unless you have like a novel hypothesis about how I can do it a better way, which like fair enough. But if with things like this, which are like echo in eternity, like cash flow, you don't need, like, it's already hard enough running and setting up a business and wearing all these different hats, yeah? Don't need to make it any more difficult for you.
Bro, I always see that with offers, right? Because you're like, oh, like I'm gonna change this and add in this and do this. And I'm like, dude, do you realize that when you go to market, it's gonna be so difficult to sell anyway? If you were selling water to someone who's like fucking super dehydrated, they will still come back and have some sort of cynicism and criticism, right? There's still gonna be difficulty, but some people. So I think the reason why for this is that like our brains will often tinker with things. So if something is working, we'll tinker things. That's why we fuck up relationships. It's why we just blow cash on random shit sometimes. Guys will say they can make it back, which I presume they can, but for the most part, this is why people go broke, is because they just tinker with stuff, you know? So I'm a big believer on like, have that moat system. So I'll just give you an idea of how we did it. So we have the done for you offer. We ran it. Well, Piyush ran it exceptionally well, until the point it got boring, because it was like, okay, we need to do this at a better way. And then we started doing something else. And now we're looking at even new channels, being like, okay, we have this, we have that, we can add in something new, which will add to the existing system, not change that system. And this is just I think it's a big misunderstanding with entrepreneurship. People want to change the current system versus actually just making it better, or just keeping it as is and adding in something else to the system.
You don't need to layer in any more operational complexity unless you're getting asymmetry on the back end. Yeah. That's it. You just want to look for that lead domino and then double down. And then you also, and this is what I say to a lot of the entrepreneurs I'm training, you need to know what your money dials are. And by money dials, this is how do you manage your time, effort and attention and activity so that you are able to put 1 unit in and get 10 out. That's asymmetry. Okay. You need to understand that. Because if not, you're going to disperse your time, effort, and energy, and you're going to get very few results, and it's going to take you even longer to get there. I think it might have been Sam Ovens a while ago, one of his YouTube videos, when he used to do YouTube videos, he's talking about like energy dispersion, and how, so say you've got like a circle.
Oh, I saw this.
Remember it? And you've got like a
little
little arrow.
Morgan explained
yeah,
this
you've got
as well.
little arrows around.
Yeah.
And you're doing like 5 minutes on admin, 5 minutes whatever, managing, 5 minutes on cash flow, 5 minutes a day on product design. Okay. It was about focus, basically, the power of focus, because where attention goes, energy flows and results show. Okay, that's the concept. And then you've got another circle, and it has one big arrow, and that's focused attention on one thing. Okay, that's how you allow things to compound. But you need to know what to work on. And when you first start in business, you don't have that data set. Okay, you don't know what your high leverage activities are. You don't know what your income generating tasks are. So you have to figure that out. Okay, but then once you do, then you're able to delegate, because you understand what your per hour, per minute, whatever worth is. Okay, and that's what you can double down on, because you're the one driving the business forward. Okay, some try to scale or tweak things too quickly, and you will just run out of cash. Okay, it always comes back down to cash flow, but you need to know what are you like. It's all energy disbursement, right? Because you can be like the 9 to 5 world teaches you to be compliant worker bees, basically. You're working a prescribed time of 9 to 5, okay? You're probably doing no more than 2 hours of actual productive work. The rest of the time, you're shuffling papers, you're looking busy, you're walking around, looking stressed, having in the tea room, in the bathroom, chatting with your colleagues, laughing and joking, okay? You don't get to do that as an entrepreneur. Okay. The other thing as well, you don't have anyone telling you what to do, how to do it, when to do it, why not to do it. Do it this way. You're your own boss. Okay. That is another mindset thing, and that's why it's really important for you to do that. Okay. But more than anything else, I don't think you have any more than 4 hours of deep work a day. I personally don't. You can maybe stretch it to 5, but depends.
And you set up your days really interesting with this too, right?
I'm like super routine, but it's not. It's obviously all governed by output, because that's the only thing that matters. Yeah, outcome, yeah. But that you reverse manufacture that to what are the inputs. Yeah. And if you're forcing yourself to work 9 to 5, but you're only getting 2 hours, like that's just dead time. How can you leverage the low activity time once you get to that point of diminishing returns to be more productive, or even to rest and recover? Yeah, like no one teaches you this, okay? I had to figure this out all on my own. And you think that you're in that grind and hustle mode, or even the monk mode side of things. But the only thing that matters is your output, okay? Can you actually work 12 to 14 hours a day, lock in and produce like 10 out of 10 work on the output, or is it going to start to get, is it once you get that point of diminishing returns, once you're out of that creative zone, are you just working for work's sake? That's another 4-hour work week thing, but he calls it like one of the most insidious places to be, where you're literally working because you feel obliged to work. And I remember listening to Matt Kelly, might have been on Frankie Lee's podcast, and this is a shadow that follows a lot of entrepreneurs around, particularly sort of if they come from a corporate background, where they have this constant feeling of guilt if you're not working.
I feel that
All the time, and it's very hard to reconcile. And I know we talked about it before, but the downside, equal opposite downside or upside of being able to work anywhere at any time is you work everywhere all the time. Okay, so
swapping
that's
the
why
9 to
structure
5 for the 8 to 8,
yeah,
or even more.
exactly. But what's the point? Okay, you've exchanged a comfortable existence where you're getting paid, you've got paid time off, you've got paid holidays, you've got someone telling you what to do, and you're working 8 hours a day, and now you're working 14 hours a day for the worst boss in the world, which is yourself. You're a tyrant. You wouldn't speak to your worst enemy the way you speak to yourself. Yeah, so it's all the counterbalance. Most people want to leave the 9 to 5 because they say they want to be their own boss. Okay, that's a fallacy. You're always accountable to someone. You're either accountable to yourself, to your partner, but more than anything else in business, your boss is now your customers or your clients. Okay, there's still accountability there, but the fact that you don't have anyone telling you what to do, if this is your first, like if you're venturing into entrepreneurship for the first time, you're finding your way in the dark. And this is the importance of mentoring, having good people around you, or being obsessed with learning and development, because success leaves clues. It doesn't have to be any harder than it is, but how can you kind of fall in love with the process and detach a little bit from the outcome and knowing that it is a process, not an event, and stretch your time horizons out, because everyone just expects results immediately. And if they're not getting immediate results, they'll just quit.
Yeah, and Leaders Eat Last go into detail on that too, which is like we've gone into like an addiction society and an entitlement society. It's been programmed to us from like the boomers age, and you deserve better and you're going to be successful, you're going to be great. So as a result, we enter the world and we think, why am I not great at running these ads or getting customers or whatnot? And then we jump ship, and then there's a problem. I want to go back to what you said about the guilt feeling, like again, like how to overcome that, because I feel that definitely, which is, even if I get up early, dial in my stuff, have my checklist, get it done, I still feel like, 5, 6 p.m., I should be going for more. Because there is more. There's more things I can do that are like, I'll give an example. We had like our our yearly roadmap for 2024. And it was like, okay, we're going to do this, and this quarter, this quarter, this quarter, this quarter. We actually ended up doing most of it by Q2 because it wasn't that complicated. And it was interesting. It was like, yes, we were doing more of it, but we kind of could move things forward a small bit. Does that make sense? Because we just allocate more time. So my question on that is like, what do you sit with and say, okay, this is to be done versus I'm going to grind this fucking out until it's done?
Yeah. There's a couple of things, like procrastination is massive, right? Particularly so when you don't have, you're basically setting self-set deadlines, okay? A lot of the time, like you want to do it in a year or you want to do it in a quarter, whatever, but like you just made that up, okay? Because obviously you're focused on the output, okay? So you can use Parkinson's law, which is, let me see if I can...
Time expands to the amount of time allocated.
To time allocated for its completion, okay? So you're kind of setting those deadlines, but you're making them super slow. So like they always use the example of if at university you've got an assignment to do, if they give you 6 weeks to do the assignment, it'll take you 6 weeks. If they give you 2 days to do it, it'll be done in 2 weeks, okay? Or 2 days, sorry, yeah. Yeah, you understand, like there's a lot of ways to do it. Where was I going with this? Ask me that question again once more from a different angle.
It's just more like the emotional side of like entrepreneurship, when you feel like that guilt of having to work all the time. Okay. Like how do you sit with that and not be on your phone? Like I'll give you an example. Even like last Thursday, went to like a beach club with Elise, and it was like 4 p.m, probably the wrong time to go and everything. And I was just fucking glued to my phone. I was in the middle of something that was really, really, really important. But at the same time, for the 2 hours of us chilling, we weren't necessarily engaging, we were just chilling. I was just basically trying to get something done, right? And it was like, yes, I could do this a little later, but I'm just going to do this now. And that's something that I just definitely struggle with, which is a blessing and a curse, which is why it works, which is why we make money, which is why we have clients and customers, whatever. For some people, they're too lazy to do the work. But for us, we actually do too much work. How do you do that? How do you solve that problem?
I wouldn't say I've conquered this yet at all. I'm probably worse than you because oh, bro, if you don't have that feminine energy to balance you out and remember that there is life to live out there, because what I do doesn't feel like work. It might look like work if you're sitting on the laptop, but it certainly doesn't feel like it. Particularly so when you can literally work from anywhere at any time, and the only thing that matters is you actually get whatever needs to be done first time. You get it done right and on schedule, or as quickly as possible. It's very difficult because it's like I think of it like a shadow over you constantly, and whenever you clock off, whenever you take the day off or weekend off, or you're traveling, you're always thinking about your problem solving. You're an entrepreneur, right? So you end up doing this thing where you're actually off, but you're actually using your time off as a productivity hack. Okay, so you're like, the reason I'm taking time off isn't really to recharge. It's so I'm going to be on a frequency, so I'm going to be more receptive for my ideas. So you actually end up like using your days off as a proxy for working. Okay, so I haven't figured this out at all. I'm really bad because I enjoy what I do. So the thing that works for me is having very clear set boundaries on where you work, and sometimes like your location, for example. Like I will never work from the bedroom. Yeah, like if I'm in the villa, I'm working in a specific place in the villa because there's crossover there, and your brain doesn't know what's working and what's playtime or what's off time. Okay, that's a good one. And then also understanding your energy flows, ebbs and flows throughout the day, and having a routine. Like for me, routine equals results. But I think I said this to you, and I say this on all the podcasts, is I am literally like a robot. Everyone calls me a robot, okay? And I'm the easiest person to stalk on the world because I do the exact same thing every day, okay? But that's how I'm able to sustain and grow like the level of output and leverage it, because I don't have to think about what I'm wearing, what I'm eating, where I'm working from, where I'm training, when I'm training. All of this is just automatic. So I've got all of this additional bandwidth that would normally be dispersed to put into your income generating tasks. But you don't start there. You start by a blank canvas, and I need to understand how can I set my day up so that I get maximum output, but I can do it mindfully. And I have a clear, well-defined end time. Okay, I can tell you mine if you want, and you can kind of get around it. So I don't particularly like getting up early. I'm probably up at 8. Protein shake first thing, and then I walk around the pool or walk on the beach for an hour. The first 15 minutes are affirmations. They're affirmations I've written that are in my voice recorded. Okay, this is how I'm able to. The whole law of attraction, the manifestation thing, for me it's more law of action, okay? But I'm actually happening to life instead of life happening to me, clear direction, okay? The rest of that 45 minutes is I'm listening to a book, and I'm obsessed with learning. And at the minute, I'm probably averaging 1 to 2 books every single week, but I love it. And it's not a vanity metric of how much you're reading. The only thing that matters is how much are you actually retaining and putting into practice.
Yeah, how much you implementing.
But I love it. I'm obsessed with it.
And are you reading or listening?
Listening, always listening.
Always listening.
Okay. And what you're looking for there again is what can you implement and put into practice straight away. Okay, otherwise it's just a vanity metric. It's pointless. Okay, but I'm reading things that I enjoy. That it's always business, but I am obsessed with learning. But for me, every single day is a school day. Every day. Okay, like most people, their education stops when they finish high school or college, university. Yeah. Like for me, and it's that paradox of the more you learn, the more you realize you know nothing, and the more you know, the more you know nothing.
And that's why when people make loads of money, either up to like $1 million a month or 500K a month, it always bugs me that they're like. Some people are like super like egotistical, because I'm like, the more that I make, the less that I know, you know, because I make more mistakes. Yes. And I make more serious mistakes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, and the magnitude of those mistakes is higher because it's relative. That honestly, that's so true. Okay, so then I've got deep work. This is deep undistracted work. No notifications, nothing. Okay, no pings, no tings, nothing. My environment is set up. Noise cancelling headphones. I'm oblivious to anything and everything going around me, and I know what my income generating tasks are, or my creative work. 2 hours, okay, undistracted. Time disappears completely. I have no concept of time. It feels like I'm like locked in for 5 minutes and then it's 2 hours later. That's the creative zone. You ever read Deep Work by Cal Newport? Very good book, recommend it. Yeah, very good. Again, just like watch a YouTube video and like the summaries, but I got that from him. That's where you get your asymmetry from, if you know what to work on, okay? Then I will, what I do, so deep work 9 till 11, then I'll have eggs, first like a meal of the day, then I'll do reactive work. Reactive work for me is emails, if I want to
scroll, whatever. I'll put 5 minutes in for that. I allow myself 3 minutes a day of doom scrolling. A cat video. I love cat videos. Okay, that's it. That's how you it. Otherwise, you get
loads of OnlyFans chicks.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got like an hour now, like for breakfast, for conversations, for a little bit of mindless scrolling, or for reactive work like emails or phone calls, whatever. Okay, then I will walk again from 12 till 1, and I'm leveraging that whole time. I'm reading, okay, or listening, whatever, and then every 15 minutes I'll stop for 5 minutes and I'll let it sink in. Okay, or I will allow, because I'm in that, you know, you say you get a lot of the good ideas in the shower because you're in that delta wave frequency. Okay, it's the same when you're outside, you're getting the sunlight, I'm earthing, I'm on the beach, whatever, I'm just walking around the pool, which is amazing, by the way. I don't take that for granted. I say it like it's nothing now, but this was like a pipe dream for me at one point. Okay, so back, second deep work block, 1 till 3. Again, time just completely disappears. And then from 3 till 5, so 3 o'clock, I have my first caffeine coffee of the day. That's my point of diminishing returns. So I use caffeine as a tool. That gets me the next 2 hours of being like switched on in the room, okay? That's when I'll do calls. I won't normally do any calls until after 3 o'clock, okay? Then I'll drive to gym at 5, train 6 till 7:30, CrossFit. That is also leveraged. The first half of the lift is still listening or reading. The second half is music, just to get me through the WOD, which is horrible, 9 times out of 10 in CrossFit. Then whatever, sauna, ice bath and recovery. Then I'll have the same thing for dinner, same place. Chicken and rice, pretty much.
Where do you eat?
Called Island Walk. So we're in Branagh, it's like 5 minutes away from here.
Nice.
But
Is Island Walk clean?
Yeah.
Really?
Well, I don't know. I'm not bothered. As long as it's got a high protein, I'm
Yeah,
happy.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
But I want to kind of get a little bit of enjoyment in there as well.
Of course.
And
yeah.
for me, like diet, I don't think I'm not as strict as you. But
You're doing more activity than me.
I'm doing a lot of activity.
Yeah.
I think I'm walking 16,000 steps a day.
Yeah, so like I'm
plus
always
CrossFit.
above like 10, but it's like always it's a bit of an effort. I will say, like, yeah, especially in Bali, it's hard to walk in Bali for the most part.
Yeah, unless
So,
you
like,
live by the beach. You
yeah,
can't
so,
walk
like,
on the roads here.
And where my new place is, I'll be very close to the beach for the most part, you know?
Perfect.
So like 10, 11, 12,000 at the max. And then like my workouts are 45 minutes, but they're weightlifting, right?
Yeah.
For you, it's much more active. And I think, to be honest, you're probably eating a lot less than me.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Not right now, but
Yeah.
in general, like I could smash 3,000 calories like nothing, you know?
Don't have the same appetite at this phase anyway. I think it's go through different seasons as well.
Of course, yeah, and that's very important too, right? You know,
Yeah.
it's like your leptin levels, it's how your body regulates, and I actually have a few big questions for you on this in general, but I want to go back to the frequency side. You've mentioned frequency quite a lot, and Tom mentioned you're kind of a hippie. So where did you learn like about like the frequency side and all that? Because like I'm a big believer in that too, especially from music.
Yeah.
Like me and Peter get along so well because we're both into the same music.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first things that we both like clicked on.
Yeah.
We just both love music, right?
Love it.
And that's quite literally a frequency,
It is.
you know? So that was kind of a big thing for me, and then it went into other things. But I'd like to get your thoughts.
So again, it all started with that 4-hour work week thing, and then I got into business books, and then that same mentor, a guy called James Blackwell, living in Dubai.
Yeah.
You know
You
James?
even look like James.
No way. Fair enough. So we pretty much grew up essentially on the same street, although he was a little further away.
No
so
way.
same background as me. He was the one who got me into corporate recruitment as well. I saw him. He's like, I don't know.
Did you work with him?
Yeah, he was my mentor. He was my first like proper mentor.
Interesting.
I was like his protege. It was hilarious that time. It was really
No
cool.
way.
Yeah, he was the one who gave me the book. I worked in corporate recruitment in Microsoft.
Yeah.
That's when he was my manager essentially.
What did you learn from him?
Pretty much everything. I remember I'm sitting like you in that work hard, play hard thing, right? He would never go out, and he would always get deliveries, Amazon deliveries, and every Amazon, it was always a book. He would just sit and read. I'm like, what the guy, this guy is, I don't know, maybe like 5 years older than me. I remember when I first met him, he drove up in a Porsche. I'm like, who is this dude, right? Absolutely mad. So anyway, like, he already had that kind of magnetism or even frequency, if you want, around this guy is going to be super successful. This guy is super switched on. I've got a lot to learn from him. Yeah, so we were like really, really good pals. Okay, but still in that management relationship type thing.
So you worked for him?
Yeah, well, not for him. He was my manager in recruitment.
Okay.
He was the one who hired me.
Okay.
Okay, so he basically burnt out in recruitment, and he's always had a burning desire to run his own business. He'd run his own business before. I think it was a coffee shop a few years before, within energy or car sales or something. So he was the one who like actually showed me that someone with a very similar upbringing to me, maybe not as bad. I don't think he was like council housing and stuff. I was like probably 10x worse than that, but still same region. Driving a Porsche at like 27, 28, pretty cool. Cool dude. He got the job and he got into yoga, a lot of meditative stuff. And this was like quite new to me. So I was like, okay, this is interesting. If he's doing it, I'm also going to look into it. And then over the years, he got me into Bob Proctor, super cool dude. Joe Dispenza. And all I was doing is just like, I would see what he's reading. If he'd post on social media, I'd actually give me like a physical book. Okay. And I would just deep dive, rabbit hole, go down it. And just because I'm in this voracious mode now of like, if he's reading it and he's doing so well, success leaves clues, surely I can learn something from it as well. So like, that's just a few of like many of those type of books. So still developed into like a whole obsession of just learning. Every day's a school day. And the frequency thing came, I think it was originally Bob Proctor, but then was also Joe Dispenza. And the thing that like really stood out to me is how you've got the traditional view of an atomic particle, and then you've got like the new age one, yeah, where like you've got like you got the protons, electrons, circling nucleus, whereas now it's just literally a blank page, and it is wherever you look at it. Okay, so you're in the quantum realm. It's different. Okay. I then got into like loads of anthropology stuff, and because I have like that affinity to spirituality, being brought up in the cult, I'm open to it. Okay, and I was like, how is there like a mix and match here of I can use this and apply it to business where it can actually be a bit of a superpower, but still it's more subconscious. Okay, so I just really enjoy learning about it. Okay, so if you're talking like with Tom, say I'm a hippie, I wouldn't say I'm not that far. I just have like a keen affinity and interest to it. But the frequency thing it's like so above, so below. Like I still find it very hard to reconcile because I don't have like a deep understanding of it. But I think there's certain like resonance and frequency. Like we feel an aura. If there's something going wrong or someone comes in the room, you can feel the energy drop. So it's being attuned to it. It's a very good book called Reality Transurfing. Would recommend it to anyone. It's a big ass book, but it's super like fascinating as to how you can actually control and manipulate yourself, your health, your future, your wealth, everything. And it all pretty much starts with intentionality and then aligning your frequency to that as if it has already happened. Okay, you can take it to the extreme and it doesn't work. So you can be like, I'm just gonna keep talking to myself and say, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire, I'm a millionaire. But you can't meditate your way out of a tiger attack. At some point you have to get up and take action and physically run away. And it's the same with this. You're acting in alignment with it. Okay, so it's all that kind of law of attraction, the manifestation side of things, but mine has a business spin on it. So it's still having a very strong bias towards action, but you're doing it mindfully. And you're not kind of caught up, because I spent a lot of the time, particularly so with that first business, completely stressed out. Like, I didn't enjoy anything. Like my whole latter part of my 20s was just like hell. And I really regret that, not doing that mindfully and not just being grateful for the opportunity and things doing okay, because it was just one thing after another, problem.
Probably because you haven't experienced those problems before too.
Exactly.
Because like now the same problem can happen and you just solve it.
Yeah.
You get me?
Because you have the data set. And this is the thing that I wish they taught in school. Like we're taught all the way through life, like failure is the worst thing that can happen. It's not. It's actually the best thing that can happen. Like failure for me is the most data-rich information. Was it? No, failure is the most information-rich data set on the planet. It is literally, okay? If you use it and look for, okay, and you're back in that scientist mindset, okay? Because it tells you what not to do. And by knowing what not to do, therefore you know what to do. So actually you've made progress. Yeah? You've actually even, and this is the thing, I always say this to anyone on the mindset stuff, I'd rather run 1,000 miles in the wrong direction than stand still. And if I am moving forward, even if I'm falling forward, I still made progress. I still fell forward. That's like the level of intensity I am with progress, with mindset. And I think that's kind of what's got me to where I am. Particularly so in those early days of the nutrition business, where everything and everyone, every cell in your body is like, just quit. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm finding my way in the dark. I don't have like any good people around me. Just quit, go back, get a job. You had a good try. No one's first business ever works out. But I didn't. I dug deep. Okay, so it's just it's an evolution. Okay, and as we said at the start, you connect the dots in retrospect. But if I didn't push through and go through with that, those opportunities further down the line would never have happened. So you can actually get to a point where you're grateful for what's happened. And it molds you. But it either happens to you or for you and through you. And there's a choice there. Yeah.
I think it's very interesting as well, because like when you've done those experiences now, you can start something new. and have the same experience but complete different perspective.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because you've gone through the loop, right? And I think that's what's pretty unique compared to. I think what's also important here is the fact that you're registering it, because the way you're describing that first business was basically kind of the start of my business. It was just like a shit show.
Yeah,
It was just a
yeah.
hellhole. You're doing like 14, 15 hours a week, and then people like Tim Stoddard for me was like, dude, you need to hire more people. You need to do this. You need to do that. So these guys can just kind of drop in and give you direction. And now, like, if something happens, I'm like, all right, we just fix it, whatever. Payment posture goes down, and just fix it, Whereas before, you get so much emotional reaction versus logical reaction.
So true.
I want to ask you about relationships.
Mm-hmm.
So you go through your day, everything, like, how have you fitted or not fitted, like, relationships, like, romanticizing relationships, like, into this? Like, how has it been positive, negative?
So I'm eternally grateful for my ex. She was that kind of day one that got me through that whole first like 4 or 5 year period. And it's obviously nuanced and it's very layered because I was in business with her dad. I didn't ask her, I said it was my ex's dad, He was the professional golfer. So for those however many years, 3 years where I was like building this business, she was like in her early 20s, I'm like also like 23, 24, 25. This is like peak lifetime, okay? She sacrificed pretty much everything to stand by me to build this business. And that means we didn't have a nice apartment, no nice cars. We didn't have a holiday for like 3 years, literally nothing. We stopped doing Christmas and birthdays because I couldn't afford to get her anything. Like, I'm like eternally grateful for that. I remember as well, if you're out of the matrix, and by out of the matrix, I mean you don't follow like the standard rule sets, trying to like get a renewal on the apartment that I had. I couldn't show a pay slip, okay?
Yeah, bro.
But I'm like, I've got this investment money. I know it's only 10K, whatever. But like, I am going to launch. This is going to happen, whatever. They were like, no, you need to either get out or pay cash up front for the 6 months or a year. And I'm like, I can't do that, right? Yeah. Even if I want to, that 10K is probably not going to cover it anyway, okay? Yeah. So her dad used to pay that for us and we would pay him back monthly. Like, that's the level of like gratitude I have for them, because without that support I would not have been able to get through that. I would have just had to go back to getting like a 9-to-5 job and keeping it as a side hustle, which would have stretched the time horizon out even further. And that lifestyle and 9-to-5 is just not compatible with business, particularly so when it's like sales, work hard, play hard, that type of thing. You're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, right? And that's the same in person, digitally, who you're reading, everything, okay? It's like osmosis, okay? 100%. You're product of your environment, okay? And I wanted to curate that environment so that I'm just solely focused on the one thing, okay? The things I had to do, by the way, in those 3 or 4 years, bro, I did so many different things. I washed dishes, drove Ubers. I looked after my granddad who had Alzheimer's because the care system in the UK is terrible. They would just not turn up, or they would give his meds, or they would get them wrong. So I was like, don't pay them, pay me a little bit, and I'll go twice a day, every day for like 2 or 3 years, get him out of bed, wash his ass, all this stuff. It's not nice in your 20s to do that, but I really had to humble myself with the objective of this bigger vision which I'm working towards, and she stuck by me by that, and I'm like super eternally grateful. But anyway, I'll try and keep it like condensed for you. She ended up getting a job for Nike in Amsterdam, their European headquarters. And so by this point I can work from anywhere. Okay, I moved over with her. I was like super isolated. This is the other downside of entrepreneurship. If you don't have good people around you, you don't have other entrepreneurs, like you're on your own. Okay, so fine for her. She had 2 best friends, also from the northeast, living and working in Amsterdam. She has a job, so she has a ready-made community. Whereas me, I'm isolated from my 3 or 4 friends that I've whittled down over time. My parents, all of that. I'm just completely isolated. So I stuck that out for maybe like a year and a half, 2 years, and I was like it's just not for me. I can't do it. Like, I'm missing out on all of this life. It was a horrible thing to have to do, but I knew deep down it wasn't right. Anyway, okay, but the reason I'm telling you this is that's how I ended up in Bali. I remember that vision when I was reading that 4-hour work week is I want to be able to have like a villa by the beach with a big pool, don't have to think about money.
Bro, there's nothing else you want,
fund.
Right?
Yeah.
Do you get me? As in, that's the big thing, is that people come here and they're like, well, what's the next thing? It's like, there is no next thing.
No, bro.
Like, how does it get better?
It doesn't.
It doesn't
Literally,
get better.
doesn't,
Like you can get a nicer place here and spend like an extra $1,000 a month.
make a difference.
But it literally
Your happiness
doesn't.
peaks. It's like
Yeah, but it doesn't get better than this though. Like.
no, I don't think so either. So that's how I ended up in Bali. And also, I have this document. It's another Sam Ovens thing called Alchemy of Self. And
I'm
Will talked
going
about it.
through that at the. Well, I haven't started yet, but Will has given it to me.
Okay,
I'm going through
Will
Will's
was in the
program
same
now.
course. Same course.
I know.
Okay.
It's like the. But I'm going through that through Will's program now.
I looked at that a while back, and you've got a vision board on it. And bro, the villa I live in is exactly like the picture that I got off the internet, the one to work towards.
Dude, you
like,
want to hear
what
something
the hell?
weird? So, fucking hell, that's so weird. So I'll tell you just an aspect on this. So I wasn't necessarily always like grinding to get like materialistic things, but I just had things that are subconscious or conscious that I wanted, let's say. And when I first came to Bali in 2020, bear in mind, which is a long time ago, this is before like Purnan was built and Canggu was barely starting. I always wanted to move to Umalas.
No
Always.
way. Where we live now.
Yeah, exactly. And I always wanted to move there. And Elise's like, nah, like it was super expensive back then. So that used to be the old Puranan for like crazy expensive villas, and it wasn't that much supply. So it was very little supply, very expensive. And then as time went on, we got a place. The place I got further by Seminyak, it was built before I bought it. So I bought it. So I rented it, bought it before it was built. It came out completely different. But when I was in Singapore and I was leaving Singapore, I was like, all right, because I moved to Singapore, I was like, I really want an all-white apartment. Okay, an all-white villa that has like a white pool. This is such a weird thing. Yeah. White pool, so white tile, white apartment, everything's white in there. The place that I have right now is all white, white pool in Umlas. Bear in mind. And it's like, dude, honestly, I said it the other day, it's around $5,500 a month. Easy. And the landlord just doesn't, like, I'm paying up front and all this kind of shit. So that's why it's a lot cheaper. But like literally, and that wasn't like wrote it on a vision board and put it on my lock screen. But again, it's the signals, and that's why I actually put the frequency thing. Because I'm still big on that, even though I don't like read the fucking book on it. I still understand that energy flow and even like the polarity of like relationships and whatnot, and all of those things like clicked and happened, you know.
That's another connecting the dots.
Yeah.
In retrospect,
and I'm not materialistic dude at all. Yeah. You know, even though although I do like places, so I guess like my villa is materialistic to some degree. But like, you know, I don't wear shoes, right?
Yeah.
Do you get me? I'm not.
But you spend in accordance with your value system, right?
Exactly. But and also because like I fucking work from there. Do you get me? Like there's that area too, and even like where we're getting married and stuff like that. And I don't know. I just think that like I want to be even more intentional with that, as because like our plan now, what we're building now is much bigger than Mr. Entrepreneur.
Yes. Do
you get me?
Yeah.
Like it's an enterprise, it's a vision, it's a brand, and that's the next phase of me for the next fucking God knows how long it would take.
That's your North Star, that's your Polaris Star, that's what you're optimizing for. And if you can like work back, reverse manufacture it, if you come to like a tough decision, it can't be binary, and it's like, does this decision move me closer or further away from the goal? And stack that over enough time. Sometimes it's not clear, but that's how you'll do it. And most of the time, once you have that, when you make the subconscious conscious, that will naturally happen over time, but you won't be aware of it, and then you'll get there and you'll be like, whoa, how did this happen? Exactly like that. Because like your mind, it's a subconscious thing, and it does happen over time, but sometimes you're not aware of it. Okay, and it's the same thing that Bob Proctor, it was a meditation that James sent me. He probably doesn't remember any of this, by the way. I used to meet him in Starbucks.
You know who I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you know who you'd really like is Adam Power.
I know the name.
So Adam he's from the same place in Cork as me. I'm from Cork. It's a county in Ireland, and he's very close with James.
Okay.
So
is Will Brown?
Yes, I don't think Adam knows Will that well, but Adam and James, like they're like in Marbella together at the moment. They even look the same. I think James.
I do know who he is. Yeah.
I think James helped him build Powered University. Well, maybe I don't know. They just give him some whatever. So they've worked on that together. I'm close to Adam, like quite close to him, and you'd like Adam because he's basically that he's really big on Bob Proctor. And all things like that as well. He's super religious. He's Christian. But he kind of pieces all like religion into business. Because very good values. Super good value. You should definitely just check him out. Just say you've recorded with me. You know James.
Okay. Yeah, but that'd be
definitely
awesome.
Definitely should.
I honestly, like the whole networking thing is key for me. It's another reason why I ended up in Bali. Is just
Bali's best for
entrepreneurs. Yeah, I agree. It was either here, Dubai, maybe Miami, but this just kind of ticked a lot more boxes. That Bob Proctor thing I was going to say is, I said it before. if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. It's just that manifestation thing. And to close off the conversation on the relationships that you asked me, I've always been in like long-term relationships. So like when I left Amsterdam, I was like, I need to like be single for at least like 1 or 2 years. Okay. And what ends up happening is, because I enjoy doing what I do so much, I just immerse myself in work. Okay. I don't go on any dating apps. Really, I find it quite hard to like organically meet girls because I don't really go out and party, and if I do,
What are you going to talk to them about?
Hmm?
What are you going to talk to them about? You know what I mean? If you meet a girl, like, you're like, oh, what's your funnel like?
Yeah, literally, I know. But the thing is, I will lead with business, okay? But I can be quite good with it because I'm literally solely focused on them, and they're just telling me their dreams, what they want to do, how they're working on it. So I can like, I'm able to like resonate on a frequency there and make it all about them. And I don't tell anyone anything about me. Like when they ask what I do, I just say I'm unemployed. Every time, unemployed.
Say you work for a fucking NASA.
It's either that or say I stack shelves, and it's just like a what do you call it? I'll drive the forklift that stacks the shelves. It's like a banter with the guys, but at the same time, it really kind of cuts down those who are just kind of looking for, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The what do you call them?
Gold diggers.
Gold diggers. Yeah, I don't know why I couldn't remember that. So yeah, and then again, when they finally do find out whatever, they're back at the villa like, what is going on here? Which is, again, it's cool, and you park your ego at the door, and it's very, the thing I've learned to do is job descriptions as self-descriptions, okay? Very easy to fall into that entrepreneur because it becomes synonymous with who you are and what you do, and that's the only thing, you kind of not multifaceted anymore, even though you are. It's hard not to do that, okay? And I think that's where things like hobbies or doing things outside of it or taking time off is super important. Even though I think if you give me anything more than 2 full days off, I go mad. Like I need to work. I have this strong burning desire and ambition because I enjoy it. Okay, it's different. And so if you can, there's the 4 things. I think it's a Ray Dalio thing. This intersection of what you're looking for is meaningful work plus meaningful relationships. Okay, and the other 2 is merge passion and profession. Okay, if you can get those, you've literally wanted everything. Easy to say, difficult to do.
Have you studied Gad Saad's work a lot?
No, but I've listened to a few podcasts.
You should listen to his recent book. Well, I recorded a podcast with him on the book, so you can listen to the podcast if it's easier. But the way he describes it, the 2 most important things are who you wake up with and what you work on during a period before you go to bed. To the same person. So it's an interesting thing, right? And I think we're cut from the same cloth, whereby like if I'm given all the time in the world, I'll just end up working. Like that's why Saturday and Sundays. You asked me about poker last night, and I'm like, dude, by the time 8 o'clock comes, like I was in bed at 9 last night, like literally because I'd worked from 6 till 9, and then I was like, I'm going to bed, and that was the end of it. And when I was during Christmas period, you know, for a lot of these companies, they slow down, especially podcasts. They slow down at Christmas. I was in Nicaragua, and it was with Elisa's family, and it was fantastic. It was a really good time. But I actually just liked working. So when most people might read or whatnot, we were just working on stuff always, you know? And I wouldn't look at that as an opportunity cost because we've optimized for the work within the lifestyle. Like if you're doing what you're doing now in Newcastle, it's grim, right? Because you're just like, oh my God, this place is so dark and dreary. You've lost your tan and everything. But optimizing for that somewhere here or Miami or Dubai is much more like, okay, it's actually in alignment. So I can spend the 12 hours or whatever it is, or just a mental bandwidth. Yeah. Does that make sense?
That makes perfect sense, yeah.
Like me and Tom were working yesterday like all day together. And I didn't...
But are you mad at it? Are you like, oh, like I wasted the day? Or I'm like...
Exact opposite.
Are you like, oh shit, I actually have to stop working. I've got so much energy to keep going. I'm just not outputting at the right thing. That's the difference, right?
Exactly.
Passion and profession. Merge those 2 and never work a day in your life. Easy to say, difficult to execute on because most people's passion you can't monetize.
Yeah. Well, you become passionate about the thing you're good at, right?
Exactly, James.
So like that's exactly how I became. That's exactly how we built our business because I just enjoyed recording podcasts and I was like, everyone is a fucking potato. So if I just teach them how to not be a potato, it will be easy. Like it was literally that progression, right? Yeah. And then it's just okay, just do these all the time. And even last week, so we'll wrap up shortly. I know it's like fucking 4, but last week I didn't have a podcast because we did the one-to-ones. We do one-to-ones with our clients. Okay. I had like. It was actually rough, bro. I had like 15 hours of one-to-ones in like 2 days. It was a lot. But I didn't record last week. Okay. And then at the end of the week, I just felt like such an imposter. I was like, I haven't recorded all week. And then this week, I'm like, okay, Monday. And then Friday, let's do another on Friday. I'm like, okay, 2. Yeah. Okay, that's because I just like doing the trade, teaching the trade, doing what I say I'm doing.
Yeah.
You know, and the term now, what's the term now? It's like, is a creator? Fuck it, I'm gonna
creator
forget.
economy.
No. People describe like Nick Bear and a few of these guys as, it's not creator entrepreneur, but basically it's like what they're selling is what they're doing.
Okay.
And it happened organically.
Yeah.
Like Nick Bear just liked lifting and running, and then he started creating supplements that helped him basically for his recovery.
Yeah.
And then because he grew, the business grew. And there's like 1,001 different examples, but I think we're a very good example of that too, right?
Absolutely.
You know,
you practice what you preach. You do what you say you do. You've achieved it, and you're not just kind of some online guru just making everything up.
Yeah.
Numbers don't lie.
That's why it's good. I remember saying to you the other day as well about keeping the businesses that you have while you're still coaching, because like in our community, I'm literally sending a screenshot to like one of the most famous people in our space, being like, "This is how I got him on my podcast. I sent it 0 minutes ago." You see him in the corner. 0 minutes sent, and here's his response. Yeah. So it's like, what's happening now? Whereas like a lot of those courses, the drop shipping courses, the e-com courses, they were recorded in 2020 when fucking, as you mentioned about ads, they're completely different.
Completely different. And technology doesn't sleep. It moves at the speed of light. And if you're out of it for anything more than probably even a month, you're getting left behind. Like no one, I don't think even Facebook understand or they know what the algorithm does and how it works. No one does. I don't think anyone does. I've had multiple Facebook reps, and each one of them tells you something different, and they haven't got a clue, and then they get fired like a month later. So you have to kind of still be immersed in it and doing it. And even if that's just a case of being able to demonstrate and add value to your clients, that this is what's working for me, you can do the same. Yeah. As opposed to do as I say, not as I do.
Well, that's where the best case study is often yourself.
Yes. 100%.
Right. I had a sales call this morning. And this guy was like, oh, like, you know, they were an agency. They wanted to do a podcast for their agency, so it's a bit kind of complicated. And he was like, oh, have you done something like this before? And then I was like, yeah. And then I showed him my podcast. And I was like, but this is what I've done. I was like, we can have all the other ones, but let's look at me first. Yes. You know, it's like hiring a personal trainer who's fat, right? Yeah. It first starts with that person. Is he jacked? Is he shredded? Does he have the values that I have? Yeah. Which is my coach, right? My coach gave up alcohol a year before I gave up alcohol. And one of the reasons why I wanted to work with him specifically was because he'd give up alcohol, and I'd given up alcohol. Yeah. And we're together 2 years in like a week. You know, most people jump ship with coaches and programs. Yeah. 2 years, every single day we check in. Of that. 2 years straight. Yeah. Never had an argument. If I wasn't making progress, if the fat wasn't coming off, if the muscle wasn't coming on, it was never his strategy that was wrong. It was me. Yeah. Right? I either not got enough sleep, or I wasn't hitting the macros, or I was getting extra sauce in Body Factory, like all this shit. Yeah. But it all came down to me, which is the reason why I get really frustrated sometimes if clients are like not doing something which you told them to do, and then it's scapegoat, right? Yeah. People often hire people as a scapegoat. I don't give a shit saying that as well. It's just a reality, like, you know. Whereas like that's why it's funny, because what you're doing right now is when you were working with clients, you had to sell you. Their trust has to be put in you to do the job. Yeah. Whereas with the done with you offer, they have to put their trust in themselves to be like, right, this guy has the info. Yeah. He can get me from A to B. Am I willing to do it? So it's much more, it's a different sell. It is. It's much more like, you're a baby, I need to baby you to get you over the line effectively, you know? But that's also why I stay so close to the sales side. Because I actually love it, and I think it's a very interesting way to develop your offer and improve your offer and so on and so forth.
It's real world life feedback as well. Yeah. For you to improve, and remember, you're paid in direct proportion to the level of problems that you solve.
100%,
so
bro.
The closer you can be to those.
And dude, like I had that like phase, you know, you mentioned there about the opportunity. So on average, our clients are like 5K a month. Some aren't, but for the most part they are. And that excludes 99% of people that have ever lived on the entire planet. And then it was the feedback from the signals and the massive CRM that I was sitting on, being like, maybe there's an intermediary step here, you know? And I think that took a lot of balls to look at and be like, okay, let's actually do it. Let's allocate time. Yeah. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah,
you're making an intelligent decision based on a market echo, not on an assumption. I won't say assumptions make an ass of you and me. Yeah.
Man, this has been a fucking amazing 2 hours, man. It's been the longest podcast I've ever recorded.
Apologies.
No. I actually, that's the reason why I was like, let's meet at 1:30, because I was like, I knew we needed time. Okay. But yeah, man, I really appreciate this. This is amazing. We're gonna have more coming up. We're gonna have more on Friday as well. Cool. But yeah, man, if I can help you in any way, more podcasts, just let me know how I can help you.
hopefully starting my own as well. I'm building a YouTube from scratch.
Yeah, man.
Obviously,
What's the angle you want to take with that?
so that's my way of giving value. Is anyone who has an e-com store, I'll allow them to book an hour call in with me, and I will literally tear it down and show them what to do on a call,
I saw
and
that,
then post it.
It's cool, yeah. Really
Like
cool.
no one else is doing it. I know it proves that I have value to offer, and then I'll
They're
check
getting a
in
lot of
with
views
them.
too.
Yeah,
They're getting a lot of views, and they're long form.
and that's from zero start, so it shows you it still works. Okay, and then those who are 5 to 10k, they can hire me, and I'll help them one-to-one, maybe like 2 calls a month, and then they've got access to a course, which is that exact 7-step framework I use for all of the other brands, so I know it works. I'm posting results all the time, and then I still keep the done for you element for my team to manage, and then that's like the kind of supercharger, because they're literally like, we do all the work for them. But I much prefer the teaching side of things. I love it. As I said, I've got so much energy for it.